Northborough Annual Town Meeting. You can deplane now. Good evening. I've just been notified that we do have a quorum, so if we can just settle down, we will get the festivities started. Just to make sure everyone is on the same page, once the quorum has been announced, and a quorum for this town meeting is 100, that has been verified, and we have more than that in the hall at this particular time. The meeting may continue if the number falls below 100, unless the quorum is questioned by someone on the floor. If the quorum is questioned, we'll have the tellers do a count of those in attendance. If we have fallen below the quorum and it's verified by the tellers, then we will have an adjournment for the evening and try to commence the meeting again tomorrow. If we're ready to start, may I ask everyone to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. As is always the case, I'd like to take a moment or two for us all to have a moment of silence for those in this community that we lost since our last meeting. Thank you. Several quick comments about town meeting, what's going on. This meeting is a culmination of many meetings over this past year, and many hours of hard work by members of the administration, boards, committees, and commissions. You will be getting their input and their recommendations as we approach each of the articles in the warrant. This is your meeting, and my job is to make sure that we go through the articles in the warrant in an orderly fashion, and that the debate and discussion is fair and balanced. Of particular note is this year we've initiated a new penalty. If your mobile phone rings, your tax bill will be doubled. I ask that you please wait to be recognized before speaking from the floor. There are microphones in the aisles, and I ask that you use the microphones. If you wish to speak on any particular article, please give your name and your address so that we can record that. I also want to remind us all that we may not agree on every subject, but it's important to remember that we all live in this same community and will continue to do so after this meeting. Now, some of you may be new to this town meeting concept, and I'd like to ask if there's anyone here attending their first town meeting. Please raise your hand. And I'd like to applaud you. Thank you. Open town meeting is the purest form of democracy in America, and I want to thank you for choosing to participate. For those of you that are new to this town meeting process, there is a very good overview on town meeting, and it's put together by the Office of the Secretary of the Commonwealth. And you can go to that website, and it's called A Citizen's Guide to Town Meetings. And I believe it's also available on the Northborough Town website as well. So take a look at that. We had a new check-in process. Everyone has their voting cards. Typically, when we vote on something, we'll do a practice vote. And I will say, all those in favor, please raise your cards, and you raise your cards. I ask that you keep your cards up until we are able to do a quick count, or if necessary, we do it with the tellers. And those opposed, please raise your cards. Okay? So now we've had a practice vote. Everyone is all set to go. The tellers have been trained in all types of civil disobedience control. And I ask that if they ask you to do something, you do it, or they bring out the chairs and whips. and they haven't had to use them over the past few years, and I hope that we don't make an exception this year. At this time, we have our illustrious team in the front row, and these are the people who have been working hard to put together the warrant and make sure that it has all of the articles that are necessary to allow this town to continue to run well. And John, I'm going to ask Town Council. Brian Baser is our Town Council this evening. The members of the Board of Selectmen with Bill Pantazis as chair. Our Town Administrator, John Kader. Our Assistant Town Administrator is Kimberly Foster. Our Town Clerk is Andrew Dowd. And for the Appropriations Committee and the Northborough Financial Planning Committee and the Northborough School Committee, we have those committees well represented here as well. I am not aware of any dignitaries or special guests that we have here this evening, so we will move on to our next area, and that's certificates and awards from the Board of Selectmen. Mr. Pantazis. He broke it already.
Is it working? Thank you, Mr. Moderator. We have certificates of appreciation. These are people that have served so diligently over the number of years, and we always appreciate people giving their time to these different commissions and committees, because we always need people on these boards and commissions. First, we have Cemetery Commission, Maureen Sargent, 18 years. Community Affairs Committee. Community Affairs Committee, Joanne Gorham, 4 years. And then from the Cultural Council, we have Catherine Arcorn, 6 years. Stephen Dennis, 6 years. Andy Lockwood, 6 years. Historic District Commission, Deborah Como, 5 years. Library Trustees, Barbara Virgil, 7 years. Leslie Homsey, 4 years. And Scholarship Committee, Brian Braveman, 7 years. We had Don Rand and Jason Perot giving out those certificates. I thank you very much. And Fred, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Thank you. And thank you for all of the volunteers that help make Northborough the community that it is. At this time, I'd like to read the return of the warrant from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Worcester, to either the constables of the town of Northborough in said county, greetings. In the name of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, you are hereby commanded to warn and notify the legal voters of the town of Northborough to meet at the Algonquin Regional High School, 79 Bartlett Street, in said town on Monday, April the 24th day in the year 2017 at 7:30 p.m. to act upon the following articles of the town warrant. Hereof fail not and make due return of this warrant by your doings thereon to the town clerk at or before the time of the meeting aforesaid. Given under our hands at Northborough on Monday, this 27th day of March in the year 2017, signed by the members of the Board of Selectmen. And the return of service states, I have served this warrant by posting attested copies of the same at the following places: Municipal Office Building, U.S. Post Office, Northborough Public Library, Lincoln Street, Peasley, Proctor, and Z Schools. Signed by the Constable, Raymond Reynolds, and attested to by the Town Clerk, Andrew T. Dowd. At this time, I would like to read the warrant in its entirety. Yes, ma'am. Motion has been made to waive the reading of the warrant in its entirety and seconded. a chance for us to vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Those opposed, our ears live for another year. With all the opening ceremonies out of the way, the main event begins. Article 1, Selectman Rand.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to ratify the appointment of moderator of Gerald Hickman as deputy moderator as provided by Article 2, Section 2-2 of the Northborough Home Rule Charter.
Each year, this is a very highly and hotly contested article. The deputy moderator is here, as they say, as a heartbeat away. And should the moderator be unable to continue, the deputy would step in, and it would be a seamless transition. All those in favor of appointing, all those in favor of appointing the deputy moderator, please raise your cards. Those opposed, Mr. Hickman, please approach. Once again. That was a close one. Article 2, Compensating Balance Agreement. Selectman Pantasis.
Yes. Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to authorize the treasurer with the approval of the Board of Selectmen to enter into a compensating balance agreement or agreements pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53F.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. There's a presentation by the Finance Director, June Hubbard Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Article number 2 is an article that appears each year on the annual town meeting warrant. If passed, it would provide the authorization for the town to enter into a compensating balance agreement in order to obtain banking services. A compensating balance is an arrangement by which the town maintains municipal funds on deposit in return for the banking services. Under such an arrangement, the earnings retained by the bank on the account balances compensate for the services provided. We currently maintain a compensating balance arrangement with Santander Bank.
Are there any questions? Hearing no questions, this is what we're voting on for Article 2. I move the town vote to authorize the treasurer, with the approval of the Board of Selectmen, to enter into a compensating balance agreement or agreements pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53F. This requires a simple majority vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Those opposed, Article 2 passes.
Thank you.
Article 3, Prior Year's Bills. Selectman Amperson.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to pass over this article.
Second.
Motion has been made to pass over, and a motion has been made and seconded. Mr. Kader, could you give some definition?
Very simply, there are no prior year bills, so it would be appropriate to pass over this article.
So for Article 3, what we're voting on is to move that we pass over Article 3. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Those opposed, Article 3 has been passed over. Article 4, Town Budget. Leslie Rutan, Selectman.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to raise and appropriate and transfer from available funds the sum of $22,018,143 for town government, and to meet said appropriation, the following sums available for appropriation be transferred. Transfer from Cemetery Trust Fund income, $5,398. Transfer from cemetery sale of lots, $17,000. Transfer from debt exclusion premium reserve, $15,707. Transfer from Title V reserve, $4,532. Transfer from Conservation Commission fees, $5,770. Transfer from Fire Emergency Medical Services Revolving Fund, $308,742. Transfer from Recreation Revolving Fund, $161,259. Transfer from Animal Control Revolving Fund, $27,000. Transfer from Medicare Part D Subsidy, $9,659. Transfer from PEG Access Cable Related Fund, $325,300. Free cash, $500,000. For a total of $1,380,367, and that the sum of $20,637,776 be raised by taxation.
Motion has been made and seconded. A presentation by Town Administrator Kader.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I have for you this evening a fairly brief presentation. Those of the folks behind me on all these boards and committees know I'm absolutely love budgets. I'm a bit of a budget nerd, and I can talk about them all night. They asked me not to do that this evening, so you have that in your favor. I've got a brief presentation to go through, and I'm going to do two things. One, I'm going to give you sort of an overview of the general fund budget, which covers all the key budgets, including the schools, tell you how that fits into the big picture, and then speak briefly regarding the general fund budget, which is the subject of Article 4. I like to begin with the end in mind and tell you right up front, this is a level service budget. There are no significant changes or major initiatives involved. The revenue projections remain modest. If you're watching what's happening at the state and you're reading the papers about our neighboring communities, you realize there's not a lot of revenue growth, which means our goal is to sustain the current level of services that we have, which are very excellent, very good, and do that within the constrained resources that we continue to have. The other thing that we've done in Northborough, I think better than many communities, is we focus very heavily on long-run financial planning, and we deal with unfunded liabilities, infrastructure planning, some of the things that aren't always as exciting. If you watch and you read the papers as I do, you know that the biggest issue facing across the country right now is infrastructure and how it's deteriorating at such a rapid pace, and we aren't reinvesting at an appropriate level. I'm pleased to say in Northborough, it is on the radar. We have plans, and we are investing at an appropriate level. In terms of revenue assumptions, there's four main categories of revenues that we operate our budgets off of. It's taxes, available funds, in this case free cash, local receipts, and state aid. Tax receipts are projected to increase about 4.4%. Now that assumes about $30 million in new growth. That's basically new development. It's probably a 15-year low that we're looking at. It peaked back about 3 or 4 years ago at about $92 million with some significant development, and that new growth has dropped off. It doesn't mean that it's a permanent trend, but right now we are not anticipating any significant new development or new growth in the upcoming fiscal year. But that does lend about $521,000 in additional revenues for the upcoming budget. In terms of available funds, we have a policy that we do not use, or we limit one-time revenues in the operating budget to $500,000. That policy is something that was adopted back in fiscal 10. This budget here, it hits that target of $500,000. Many years ago, we used to use over $1 million, and what it does is it creates, as you know, a structural deficit. So we limit those one-time revenues to $500,000. Local receipts, primarily motor vehicle excise. About $2.4 million of that $3.7 million is motor vehicle excise taxes. The rest are building permits, license fees, things of that nature. For purposes of this budget, we're assuming level funding of those revenue sources. Last but not least is state aid. State aid makes up about 10% of our budget, and right now the governor has released his budget numbers, and we're anticipating about a 1.6% increase, which is about $82,000. The state currently, in fiscal year 17, the year we're in right now, they still have about a $200 million budget deficit that they haven't closed. Looking forward to fiscal 18, according to the Mass Taxpayers Foundation, they have about an $800 million budget gap for the upcoming fiscal year. So we're not anticipating, again, this year, I hate to say, any significant increases in state aid. And that's been one of the drags on our local budget, is that The state budget has had problems ever since the recession, and as their revenues start to come back, they're either overly optimistic or they get the revenues back and they don't pass them down to the localities. So for this budget, we're anticipating, as I said, 1.6% increase in local aid. Here's the big picture. In terms of the general fund, which includes the schools, general government, all of the assessments for the high school and for Assabet Valley Regional Voc School, we're looking at about a 2.78% increase. So a very modest increase overall. And I would just point out that the line items in red in the center here, these are one-time expenditures using one-time revenues. Instead of taking one-time revenues and using them in our budget, in our recurring operational budget to fund personnel and things of that nature, we use our one-time revenues to fund one-time capital projects. And that's a very good, appropriate, and fiscally conservative approach. This year we have almost $1.5 million in pay-as-you-go capital, but it's included in this 2.78%. The other thing is, in order to maintain our appropriate level of reserves, there's a warrant article that has us appropriating $200,000 into the stabilization fund. Again, that's not an actual expenditure. That's money that's essentially going into our emergency savings account. So those numbers are built into that 2.78% increase for the general fund. In terms of the budgets that most people are here to vote on and most people are concerned about, I'm just going to run through these very quickly. The Northborough K-8 schools is going to go up 3.19%. The general government, which is police, fire, DPW, all non-school activity, is going up 3.8%, and that includes the increase that we're facing this year in health insurance. The Algonquin Regional High School operating assessment is going up 3.4%, and the debt is basically level service, level funded for their building project for this building right here. And the last key budget is the Assabet Valley Vocational High School. Their assessment is going up. The debt service on their project is going down. The net impact is about a 1.4% increase, or a little over $12,000. Now, the important thing for you to know is these key budgets, these are all based and were derived beginning back in December when all the boards and committees behind me met to review the town's financial trend monitoring program and our 5-year financial forecast. That's the context in which we determine what these budgets can increase for the upcoming fiscal year. And I will just tell you that of all the boards and committees, there was unanimous support for this level of budget increase. Essentially, when you look at these, we all need about a 3.5% increase in order to maintain the current level of services. And by and large, as you go through these budgets, assessments will go up and down for the high school and Assabet, depending on our level of enrollment in those facilities. The town and the K-8 schools basically started out with a 3.5% increase. Schools went down a little bit, and the general government side went up a little bit because we carry the health insurance for all employees, including school employees, on the general government side. And health insurance, as you'll hear in a moment, was a bit of a tight squeeze to get into this fiscal year's budget. I'm going to talk now about general fund, the general government highlights only. There aren't a lot of things happening. As I said, it's a level service budget. But basically, that increase includes a 2% increase for all the collective bargaining agreements, including non-union folks. And the only thing that we've done in terms of personnel or initiatives here is we have funded the last year of the staffing studies. Back in 2014, we did a comprehensive staffing study across the organization. It resulted in 2 independent consultants coming in and doing a detailed operational review and analysis of the police and the fire departments to base the staffing that we have today on actual workload measures. So when that concluded, we added two positions to the police department, including a new 6th sergeant, and we added a position a year for the last 2 years to the fire department. This is the last year we're going to add a firefighter paramedic mid-year in fiscal 18, and that will get us to 5 personnel per staff. And that is the sweet spot for us in terms of our fire personnel. So the staffing on both police and fire is something, again, has been the subject of probably 3 years of study, unanimous support from all the boards and committees, and actually a very good collaborative effort working with the staff in those departments as well. So we're adding this last position, and again, it's a mid-year position. The only other thing that's really in motion for our budget in fiscal 18 is the health insurance premiums. We've been very, very lucky. We've had about a 2.57% increase in health insurance for the last 8 years. This year, we saw some substantial increases. There's a lot of uncertainty out there at the federal level, but also, if you read in the papers, a lot of the major carriers lost money. They mismanaged themselves. Somehow that's our fault. They raise our premiums. But everybody around us is facing double-digit increases. We were able to work with our bargaining units. In fiscal 17, the year we're in right now, we did plan design changes to get our increases down to a 3% increase. This year we started out with significant increases, and working with the bargaining units, I will tell you about maybe 45 minutes prior to this meeting, the Board of Selectmen signed memorandums of agreement with all of our unions to do plan design changes again for the upcoming fiscal 18 years. That was a phenomenal. They all came to the table within 3 weeks, and we cut a deal to increase co-pays and to get that down to a reasonable increase that we could fit inside of this budget. The slide everybody always wants to know, if we approve all of these things tonight, what is it going to do to my taxes? At this point in time, we are estimating that for the average single-family home of about $408,000, we're looking at about a $230 increase. And again, that's about a 3.2% increase in the average tax bill. And again, that's what we need in order to sustain the services that we have currently. One disclaimer I have to make every year is this is based on current values. If something happens and values go up or go down, that will clearly impact the average tax bill. So everybody's excited now. That gets you all glazed over. I'm on my concluding slide here. The thing that you want to take away from this budget, and again, this is an abbreviated presentation from the one that was done at the hearing with the Board of Selectmen and the Appropriations Committee, but the key points are that this budget is within the confines of Prop 2.5 inter-town policies. I say this every year. This is not a gimmick. There are no one-time fixes. There's no Enron accounting. There's no things like that in this budget. Our budget is based on solid principles with solid projections, working with all of the people up at this table and the school committee and the superintendent to bring something forward that complies with all of our long-range policies that govern how we do our business. All the core missions and services are supported adequately under this budget. We also look at the long-term implications. We don't pass or bring a balanced budget before you this evening that kicks the can, that doesn't take care of our unfunded liabilities, that doesn't invest in our equipment, our buildings, and our infrastructure. We touch upon all of those things, and when it comes to a truly balanced budget, it's balanced not just in the current year, but it's balanced as you look out 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road. That's what we do. That's what we spend 6 months out of the year before we come to you this evening talking about. And we measure, and we do trend analysis, we do projections, and we're very clear about what it is that where we're going and what we're trying to accomplish. And as a major part of that always is making sure that we try to minimize the tax impact on the residents. We're asking for what we need to maintain the services. If we're doing anything outside of level services, we make sure that we communicate that well in advance and get everybody's support. But again, this evening, we've got a level service budget. The last piece that I'll leave you with is I'm very pleased to report we have received the National Distinguished Budget Award for the 7th consecutive year in a row. And as I mentioned last year, Northborough continues to be a model statewide. We go across the state and train most finance committees. If you serve on a finance or capital planning committee in Massachusetts, there's a pretty good chance, if you've done it in the last 5 years, Northborough is a community that's actually trained you in best practices in capital planning and financial trend analysis. We go all over the state and provide those trainings free of charge. So with that, concludes my presentation. I'm certainly happy to answer any questions that anybody may have.
Mr. Stone.
Doug Stone, 33 Birch Hill Road. With the Proposition 2.5, if you could briefly explain if the average tax bill goes up 3.2%, how is that staying within the Proposition 2.5?
It's a complicated process, but Proposition 2.5 doesn't mean that your individual tax bill can only go up 2.5. Your individual tax bill is based on your property and what's happening with your property relative to commercial, industrial, but essentially it's what's happening with your personal property, your home. So the 2.5, it limits the overall tax levy can only go up 2.5%. And then there's an overall levy ceiling limit that you can't exceed. So it doesn't mean that the individual tax bill can only go up 2.5.
Hearing no other questions at this time, I ask for a recommendation from the members of the Board of Selectmen on Article 4.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The board voted on this article and approved it by unanimous decision.
Thank you. And may I also hear from the Appropriations Committee?
Mr. Moderator, is this on? The Appropriations Committee unanimously recommends approval of this article. We initially voted on this article on April 6th at our last meeting prior to town meeting. We had a majority. We did not have a full committee. We re-voted again this evening prior to coming into this meeting at our pre-meeting. So every single member of the board has voted on these articles, so I can say we unanimously recommend this article.
Thank you. No further questions? This is what we're voting on for Article 4. I move the town vote to raise and appropriate and transfer from available funds the sum of $22,018,143 for town government, and to meet said appropriation, the following sums available for appropriation be transferred. From the Cemetery Trust Fund income, $5,398. Transferred from the cemetery sale of lots, $17,000. Transfer from the debt exclusion premium reserve, $15,707. Transfer from Title V reserve, $4,532. Transfer from the Conservation Commission fees, $5,770. Transfer from the Fire Emergency Medical Services revolving fund, $308,742. Transfer from Recreation revolving fund, $161,259. Transfer from the Animal Control revolving fund, $27,000. Transfer from Medical Part D subsidy, $9,659. Transfer from PEG Access Cable Related Fund, $325,300. And from free cash, a sum of $500,000, for a total of $1,380,367. And that the sum of $20,637,776 be raised by taxation. This requires a majority vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. And those opposed. Article 4 passes. Article 5, Water, Sewer, and Solid Waste Funds. Selectman Amberson.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to raise and appropriate and transfer from available funds.
Excuse me, Mr. I hear a phone ringing. You can pay your additional taxes right up at this table. You may go ahead, Mr. Amberson.
I'll start over. Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to raise and appropriate and transfer from available funds the sum of $5,280,239 for the operation of the water, sewer, and solid waste utilities, and to meet said appropriation, the following sums available for appropriation be transferred. From the water fund free cash, $52,602. Solid waste fund free cash, $87,670. And raise and appropriate by taxation from the solid waste general fund subsidy, $217,160, for a total of $357,432, and that the sum of $4,922,807 be financed from water, sewer, and solid waste revenues. The total appropriation to be allocated as follows. Water Fund, $2,436,381. Sewer Fund, $2,051,028. And solid waste, $792,830, for a total of $5,280,239.
Motion has been made and seconded. Our DPW Director, Mr. Carpentier.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Water and Sewer Divisions operate and maintain the town's public water supply and distribution, as well as the sewer collection system and related facilities. The water, sewer, and solid waste budgets are enterprise funds as authorized by statute, which provides a separate accounting and financial reporting mechanism for the municipal services for which a fee is charged in exchange for goods or services. This allows the community to demonstrate the public the portion of total costs of a service that is recovered through user charges and the portion that is subsidized by the tax levy, if any. I'll present the proposed budgets for water and sewer enterprise funds, and then our town engineer, Fred Litchfield, will present the proposed budget for solid waste enterprise fund. On average, the town of Northborough uses approximately 900,000 gallons of water per day, which is purchased entirely from the MWRA. The water system facility map here illustrates the interconnection with the MWRA off Bartlett Street, our 2 water storage tanks, as well as the 4 wells that are currently inactive. This water distribution map shows the limits of our water supply network and the service area. Approximately 80% of the town's properties receive water from a public water system. The $2,436,381 proposed FY18 Water Enterprise Fund operating budget is an $184,908 or 8.2 increase over last year's budget. This includes $104,954 of increase in the MWRA assessment and a transfer of $65,000 for hydrant replacement from the capital plan into the operating budget. These 2 items alone account for over 90% of this year's total budget increase. One of the components driving this increase is a significant 19 million gallon increase in the water consumption since 2016. It's important to note that the increased costs associated with higher consumption in turn yields additional revenue collected in the form of user fees. Higher water sales are effectively mitigating the impact on water rates. Our water rates, which have not been increased since 2014, are expected to increase modestly in FY18 following the completion of a formal rate study. Our Sewer Enterprise Fund provides approximately 30% of Northborough access to the town's wastewater collection system. The sewer collection map here illustrates our sanitary sewer collection system, along with our 9 pumping stations. All of Northborough's sewer is collected, discharged, and subsequently treated at the Marlborough Westerly Wastewater Treatment Plant. The proposed FY18 Sewer Enterprise Fund operating budget is $2,051,028. This represents an increase of $332,606, or 19.4% over last year. This year's budget is entirely funded with revenue from user fees and reflects an estimated increase in the Marlborough use charges of $58,081. And the Hudson Street Pump Station new project debt is in this year's budget in the amount of $226,110. Those 2 items alone account for over 85% of this year's budget increase. Northborough's share of the recent $30 million Marlborough treatment plant improvements and our share of the associated operating costs remain uncertain due to our ongoing negotiations for a new IMA, intermunicipal agreement with the City of Marlborough. However, anticipating significant increases, the town has instituted a series of incremental rate increases over the past years, FY14, 16, and 17. We expect the rates to rise again this year in FY18 but only after the completion of our formal rate study. Mr. Moderator?
Yes.
That's all.
Okay. Could I get a recommendation from the Board of Selectmen on Article 5, please?
Well, we have Fred.
You still have a
Oh.
portion.
Sorry, folks, Part 2.
Yeah, no, this one here.
Okay,
There you go.
there we go. Good evening. The Solid Waste Enterprise Fund involves the administration of two separate contracts. The collection contract, which requires the curbside collection and disposal of recyclable materials every other week, and for the curbside collection of solid waste on a weekly basis. All solid waste is then delivered to the Wheelabrator facility in Millbury in accordance with the town's long-term contract for disposal. The total fiscal year 18 solid waste budget is $792,830, which represents a 3.19% increase from last year. In fiscal year 18, the appropriation again contains a $10,000 contingency reserve account to ensure funding for the potential of any unforeseen event in the coming year. Last year, at the completion of the previous 5-year contract, the town reached an agreement with the current collection contractor, Republic Services, to continue service for an additional 3-year period. Fiscal year 18 is the second year of this contract, which sets the collection cost at $484,500. This represents a 2% increase over FY17. In 2015, the disposal contract with Wheelabrator facility in Millbury was renegotiated, providing a lower tipping fee, thereby reducing long-term costs. Total fee revenues in fiscal year 18 are estimated to be $488,000, and the projected general fund subsidy is $217,160, with a transfer from the solid waste fund free cash of $87,670 allows us to reach the total fiscal year 18 solid waste budget of $792,830. The Pay-As-You-Throw program, initiated in January of 2003, continues to be very successful, as shown in the chart behind me. It's indicating that both trash and recycling volumes are holding very steady for the last several years. I'll take questions if you have any.
Hearing no questions, may I have a recommendation from the Board of Selectmen, please?
Mr. Moderator, the board voted on this article, and it was approved by unanimous decision.
And may I hear from the Appropriations Committee, please?
Mr. Moderator, by unanimous vote, the Appropriations Committee recommends approval of this article.
Okay, this is what we're voting for on Article 5. I move the town vote to raise and appropriate and transfer from available funds the sum of $5,280,239 for the operation of the water, sewer, and solid waste utilities. And to meet said appropriation, the following sums available for appropriation be transferred. From water fund free cash, $52,602. From solid waste free fund cash, $87,670. Raise and appropriate by taxation, solid waste general fund subsidy, $217,160, for a total of $357,432, and that the sum of $4,922,807 be financed from water, sewer, and solid waste revenues. The total appropriation being allocated as follows. Water fund, $2,436,381. Sewer fund, $2,051,028. Solid waste, $792,830, for a total of $5,280,239. This vote requires a simple majority. All those in favor, please raise your cards. And those opposed. Article 5 passes. Article 6, Northborough K-8 schools budget. And that is Mr. John King.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move the town vote to raise and appropriate by taxation the sum of $23,445,017 for the operation of the Northborough Public Schools.
Motion has been made and seconded. We will have a presentation from our school superintendent, Christine Johnson.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. It is a privilege to be here once again this evening as Superintendent of Schools and on behalf of the school committees to present the FY 2018 K-8 Northborough budget and subsequently the Northborough-Southborough Regional School budget. The presentation at town meeting, as we've heard from several of the presentations that have preceded this one, really truly represents the culmination of many months of collaboration and budget development that began early in the new fiscal year and continues and has continued each month as we worked in partnership with the school committee, school administration, teachers, town officials, and town departments to ensure that the budget that we embrace this evening embraces and fulfills our mission and annual goals. The outcome of our work is to present to the community of Northborough this evening an educationally sound and fiscally responsible budget. Last year, it seems just yesterday, we gathered together and we were very anxiously awaiting the completion of the Lincoln Street Elementary School. In late August, we opened our doors to the community, and many of you and many parents and neighbors celebrated the good work and the collaboration upon the successful completion of this renovation. We continue to invite you to participate in the celebration of our students each and every day throughout the year by attending one of the many venues and events that are sponsored by our schools and the organizations that support teaching and learning. On behalf of our school committee, I extend a thank you for your enthusiasm and investment in the future of our children. The FY 2018 operational budget supports our vision for education in our community, provides opportunities for all students to pursue and to fulfill their personal pathway of success. Copies of the public hearing document were available. It's also available online. And if you missed a school committee or two meeting and want to be more involved in the process, they're certainly available for viewing, taped and provided by Northborough Cable Access on our website. I would like to share the story behind the numbers that you have in front of you this evening and through the presentation. The budget, as also noted by Town Administrator John Kader, is really a preservation this year of our programs and our resources that support teaching and learning with some focused growth in targeted areas. We begin with our statement of vision and mission, which really forms our framework for the work that we do each and every year as we build the budget and continue to provide meaningful teaching and learning experiences for all students. This vision is very much embedded in our strategic plan that right now is getting very, very closer to that Vision 2020. It's amazing how quickly that time has passed. But we've made significant progress working together in collaboration with the town to achieve the goals that we identified back in 2016-15 when we developed this budget. Each and every year at the beginning of the budget season, the school committee embraces all of the changes on the educational landscape, the various mandates that come our way, sometimes quite surprisingly so by the Department of Education at the state level and certainly at the federal level, and also most importantly to review and to assess our ever-changing student needs. The budget goals, I'm pleased to say and share with you this evening, have been fulfilled through the budget that we are presenting to you this evening. And I just wanted to review them quickly. One of our goals is always to maintain our class size policy. Also this year, we worked collaboratively with parents and members of the various boards to create a policy that addressed the spikes in enrollment that we realized over the summer. It's amazing. This year was our first year that we enrolled students at the central office, and in just 2 months, we registered 58 new students at the K-8 level and 62 students at Melican Middle. That number doesn't necessarily spike up enrollment because students move in and out. But imagine when you were voting for a budget today, if we didn't have a policy that addressed how to address the changes in class sizes that might be realized when we open our doors in September. we would have disproportionate enrollment. So we worked together very closely and implemented a plan and a policy, and that will continue this year. And all of that helps to manage and moderate any budget increases because we're able to move students from neighborhood school to neighborhood school. Meet the needs of all learners, that's always primary to our mission, and I'm also pleased to say that without additional cost this year, and through the creation of some innovating programs that we do and maintain collaboratively with not only the Assabet Valley Collaborative, but neighboring districts, we're able to meet the needs of the student and reduce overall cost to any singular community. Continue to provide programs to meet the social and emotional health of all children. There are a number of grant opportunities in this area, both at the federal, state, and local level, and we seize those opportunities to begin to do some program development. Additionally, it's very important, as you can see from this building, walking into Algonquin Regional High School, to maintain our capital assets, and that is not only just a special emphasis on energy efficiencies and maintenance efficiencies, but several years ago, we launched an extensive Safe School Readiness program, and that continues, not only training with students, but also addressing safety measures that can be implemented and cost-effectively included in our day-to-day operations. This year, we saw a change in the MCAS testing, the state assessment. It's being called MCAS 2.0, and it's the first time that we have launched this assessment online. And our classes, grades 4 through 8, for the first time actually took the state assessment online. It's a pilot, and we were very pleased to report that our students were ready, and I actually think they enjoyed the process this year, taking it online. It's a very familiar experience to our students at that age. And also to continue to move forward with our technology. This budget supports that, but still is within the parameters of the town's request for what our budget needs to be each and every year. How do we do this? We analyze our personnel, and we continue to look for opportunities to redistribute the resources that we have within our school to best meet the needs of the children. This year, because of declining enrollments, we were able to reduce the budget, the FTEs, and we were able to return some of that in terms of reduced cost in the overall budget. But we were also able to do some things like add our math coordinator to a 1.0 position. We piloted that last year, and we were able to fund that position through grants, not operational budget. It was very successful, and we want to continue to provide that math support. Again, we maximize grant opportunities. I have to applaud Melican Middle. You saw that one of our budget goals was to develop social and emotional programming for students. We were the recipient, through great work of our teachers, of a $216,000 grant to launch a transitional program at the middle school level that would allow that experience to continue at the high school. So that is one of our goals, is to develop transitional programming. The upgrading of technology infrastructure and creating device renewal program. Technology is old and oftentimes can become obsolete very quickly. We have launched a very extensive device renewal program so that some of the technology that we've used before in the classroom, maybe 2 generations ago iPads, have been redeployed for specific applications. So we're utilizing and refreshing the technology that we have in different ways through innovative conversations. Mr. Correa mentioned that we had collective bargaining this year. I want to applaud the Teachers Association. We came together, as well as the other associations on the school side, with a very positive spirit. And I will share with you that there is no question our teachers are proud, very proud, to be a member of this community and to be a part of our teaching community. So we successfully negotiated our 3-year contract, and back to the classroom and back to the work that we do. In terms of this budget, we took a look and 5-year benchmarked our previous expenditures. And so if you look through the budget at any point in time, the detailed line item budget, you'll see that many of our line items actually went down, not up, to reflect this process. Overall, as was shared, our K-8 budget is an incremental increase over FY17 of 3.19%. It's also noteworthy that, to some degree, this is the snapshot of the preservation of resources. If we dissect or disaggregate that total amount, we find that almost 60% was tied to collective bargaining and contractual obligations. Almost 38% of that amount is allocated towards fixed costs, things that we have to provide, transportation, tuition for students, meeting the students' needs. And 3% was discretionary funds. What is a discretionary fund? Changes in staffing or instructional resources for our students. This is the disaggregation of the total operational budget. It's perhaps difficult to see, but available online if you'd like to take a look at it a little bit more in depth. How do we offset those rising costs? Well, we look at innovative programming and find a way to retain our students in district. Through collaborative undertakings with neighboring communities, we are able to cost share many of the programs that we need to develop because the student needs change. And this year, next year, we are piloting a therapeutic program, and we have reduced the cost by sharing that experience with a neighboring district. That allows us to keep the child close to heart and home, and also reduce costs that might be realized by sending students out of district. We have collaborative placements or partnerships to reduce the transportation costs, particularly in the area of student support services. We also are very mindful of one-time kinds of services that need to be provided for students, and so we use outside resources instead of increasing the FTE count and then affecting rising potential insurance costs. I mentioned earlier that we were fortunate to receive a Metro West Partnership grant in the amount of $216,000. I would be amiss if I did not applaud the effort of the Northborough Parent-Teacher Organization and the Algonquin Parent-Teacher Organization. They provide a tremendous amount of resources to offset those kinds of programs that we're not able to provide necessarily in the operational budget. And this year in particular, if you were unable to attend the Northborough Education Trivia Night, in 1 year, this organization raised $51,000 for Chromebooks and technology in the classrooms at the K-8 level. That allowed us to provide that online testing experience. We haven't fully implemented all of these. They'll be implemented in the FY 2018 year, but tremendous, tremendous effort on such a short window to provide support for the operational budget. So thank you to all of these organizations. We continue to lobby at the state level. Our school committee is incredibly active on the legislative level. There are many activities and many bills and many opportunities for us to allow our voices to be heard. In addition to the legislative meeting that is sponsored by the town, we attend many legislative activities, and we're often told it only takes 6 people to make a difference. So they hear our voices. And also to, again, engage in maintenance management practices that help offset costs, but also preserve our assets. And again, I want to just underscore the incredibly collaborative relationship that we had throughout the bargaining process this year. And that's the K-8 budget for FY 2018.
Thank you. Before we have any questions, I'd like to get the recommendation from the Board of Selectmen, please.
Mr. Moderator, the board voted on this article and approved it unanimously.
Could I also have a recommendation from the Northborough School Committee, please? Great. Now may I hear from the Northborough School Committee, please? Thank you. Now, are there any questions, any discussion? Hearing none, I'll remind you of what we're voting on for Article 6. I move the town vote to raise and appropriate by taxation the sum of $23,445,017 for the operation of the Northborough Public Schools. This requires a simple majority vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Those opposed? Article 6 passes. Article 7, Northborough Southborough Regional School District Budget. School Committee Member, Mrs. Joan Frank.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move the town vote to raise and appropriate by taxation Northborough's share of the assessment for the operation of the Northborough-Southborough Regional School District, the sum of $11,075,443.
Motion has been made and seconded. And again, we get to hear the golden voice of School Superintendent Christine Johnson.
I don't think I've ever quite heard that comment before. I'm going to treasure that and keep it close to heart. Well, thank you. Once again, I'd like to present the Northborough-Southborough Regional School District Algonquin budget. And much of what I shared in the K-8 process is very similar in the process that we engage in to present and create the regional budget. There is one difference. As a regional district, we operate like a town. So all of those costs that we heard earlier, those rising costs in health insurance and liability insurance and Medicare, they're incorporated into our regional budget because they are part of our line item budget. And so as the town engaged in very successful conversations with the associations, both school associations and on the town side, we as a regional district also engaged in similar negotiations to reduce the rising cost of health insurance. And again, I'm fingers crossed, Wednesday, I think we're going to be quite successful when they take the vote. Again, very collaborative relationship with our teachers at Algonquin. So I'm going to move a little bit faster through this. Again, we start with a statement of vision and mission. It's high school. It's a different school committee. It's a different budget. So our vision and mission statement, still embedded in our strategic plan, is a little bit different. I think you also have copies of this in the public hearing document that are in front of you, that you have in front of you. Our strategic plan focuses on 4 areas of focus: improving communication, making sure our curriculum is aligned and rich and vibrant and rigorous, student support services, and technology. And we too set goals. And I'm pleased to say that while this budget is really affected by 2 increases, contractual obligation and rising fixed costs in the area of health insurance, we were able to meet our goals by working collaboratively and creating innovative programming, much like we described earlier at the K-8 level. So here are our goals for Algonquin Regional High School. The budget for Algonquin, the incremental increases shared earlier, is 3.8%. And again, embedded in that $816,000, 541 amount, are many of the costs that we heard embedded in the town's budget, because they look at the regional district as a town. And here, in a very visual way, is the disaggregation of the total increase of that $800,000. You'll see that it's fixed costs, it's contractual obligations, and out of that entire increase, we have about 2.26% for things like increases in instructional resources and technology. This is the budget and all of the funding categories that are connected to a school budget, again, available online. And we too have some offsets. This year, we're looking at administrative reorganization, which helped us with our preparation of our budget. We are expanding our student exchange, international exchange program. We started this last year. We formed another relationship and have embraced another partner, and that is tuition money that will come into our school district to support other programming. We too have done a 5-year benchmarking on each line item, and that has been reflected in our line item budget. We continue to have strong relationships with the booster organization, with APTO, which is the Algonquin Parent Teacher Organization, and pursue quite vigorously every grant opportunity that we can identify and reasonably apply for. The program development that takes place at the high school is extensive. At this level, it's about career and workforce readiness for some of our programming, which is very different than the middle school. And we are spending and being very mindful of the importance of transitioning many of our programs from the K-5 to the middle school to the high school, and making sure that there's a transition of delivery of services for our students. Transportation special funding. This is a topic that is quite lively each and every year. How much is the state going to support regional transportation? And it's changed. This funding that you see as a budgeted, a bulleted amount is actually one-time funding that we received from the state. And this year we're applying that to reduce the Algonquin budget. And again, healthcare options, we're very optimistic about the work that we've done for plan design changes with our associations and anticipate a very favorable response on Wednesday. It's interesting sometimes to see this snapshot. It really does share with you basically what impact October enrollments have on the percentage of the regional budget that's allocated between our two towns. And so when you see that fluctuation, it really represents a fluctuation in enrollment as of October 1. It's something that we track. I'm not sure how many years we're going to track it for, but right now it does give you some good historical perspective on those shifts. This is another historical budget snapshot, and in very short time it will become far more meaningful as we go through how that assessment takes place. So in 2018, we had 1,446 students enrolled as of October 1. The budget increase that we just reviewed was a 3.8% on operational budget, and earlier, I think you saw on a previous slide that the assessment to Northborough for the increase in the amount, but also the operational budget is a 3.41%, and the correlating amount for Southborough this year is a 4.86%. This is how we calculate the appropriation. We start with the budget. We minus those kinds of funds that we receive from other sources, and then we end up with a number that is offset by the required minimum local contribution, which we have no influence on. That comes to us from the state, and that is something that also fluctuates each year. After the required contributions and the funding that we receive as offsets, we're left with an amount that has to be apportioned between the two regional districts. And through that process of apportionment, which is that percentage that we saw based on enrollment, we realize the total assessment increase that was just shared with you. Thank you for listening, and thank you for your continued support of our schools. Before I leave the podium, there are two people who have been involved not just in the budget process, but involved in the lives of our students for so many years. And this year, they've decided to move on to a second or maybe a third career path. That is Principal Tom Mead. After 8 years of commitment to our students, to the community, and being here on many occasions when we've presented budgets and had discussions where the community needed to come together, Tom was ever present. He's ever present in the lives of our students, attending so many events and so many activities. I know that he is not here this evening because he's busy with a student-centered event. So I wanted to just really applaud the work, the effort, the commitment, the dedication, the inspirational programming that he has provided for our students over 8 years. So I just would like to applaud. And as I look out, some of you may remember this name, Mel Lawton. Mel Lawton has been here for 23 years. He started as a tutor in special ed, and he has been, there's a smile, he started as, and then became an assistant principal. And he's that forever champion behind every student, encouraging them to find that personal pathway that we talked about in the presentation, and just do their best and don't give up and get out there and give it a try. He's that shadow, that partner that's forever with our students. So Mel will be retiring this year as well, and both are having a very difficult time with their most recent decision. So we wish them all a successful retirement. So I just... Thank you.
Thank you very much. May I hear from the Appropriations Committee on Article 7, please?
Mr. Moderator,
The Appropriations Committee recommends approval of this article.
Thank you. Any questions? Any discussion? Hearing none, this is what we're voting for on Article 7. I move the town vote to raise and appropriate by taxation Northborough's share of the assessment for the operation of Northborough Southborough Regional School District, the sum of $11,075,443. This vote requires a majority vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. And those opposed. Article 7 passes. Article 8, Assabet Valley Regional Vocational School District Budget. Motion made by a Virginia Sims George, Vice Chair of the Assabet Valley School Committee.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to raise and appropriate by taxation Northborough's share of the assessment for the operation and debt service of the Assabet Valley Regional Vocational School District, the sum of $892,893.
Motion has been made and seconded. The town administrator, Mr. Kader, will make the presentation for the school superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Assabet Valley is a technical high school. It's a vocational school composed of member communities Berlin, Hudson, Marlborough, Maynard, Northborough, Southborough, and Westborough. Basically, our assessment fluctuates with the number of students that we send to the school. Right now, the number of students is increasing to 49, and our assessment reflects that. Our assessment is up a little bit, but our share of the debt service for the recent project is down. The net effect is the assessment for the Assabet Regional High School is a 1.41% increase, or a little over $12,000. And again, it's based on the number of students that we're sending there.
Thank you. May I hear from the Appropriations Committee on Article 8, please?
The Appropriations Committee recommends approval of this article.
Thank you. Any questions, any statements? Hearing none, this is what we're voting for on Article 8. I move the town vote to raise and appropriate by taxation Northborough's share of the assessment for the operation and debt service of the Assabet Valley Regional Vocational School District, the sum of $892,893. This is a majority vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. And those in opposition. Article 8 passes. Article 9. Library grants, and Selectman Perot, please.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to authorize library trustees to accept and spend a sum of money received under the Library Incentive and Municipal Equalization Grants and the Non-Resident Circulation Offset Program under the provisions of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 78, Sections 19A and 19B, and 605 CMR 4.00, and as supplemented or amended by current state budget language, to be used by the library trustees for books, automation costs, or in any way that may benefit the library, and to apply for state aid for the coming fiscal year.
Motion has been made and seconded. Presentation by Michelle Riel, Library Trustees Chair.
Hi, Michelle Rehill, 357 Brigham Street. This is just a housekeeping article. It comes up every year, and it just allows us to accept grants and apply for grants at state and federal level.
Thank you. May I hear from the Appropriations Committee, please?
Mr. Moderator, by unanimous vote, the Appropriations Committee recommends approval of this article.
Thank you. Any questions, any statements? Not hearing any, this is what you're voting on for Article 9. I move the town vote to authorize the library trustees to accept and spend a sum of money received under the Library Incentive and Municipal Equalization Grants and the Non-Resident Circulation Offset Program under the provisions of Mass General Laws, Chapter 78, Sections 19A and 19B, and 605 CMR 4.00, and as supplemented or amended by current state budget language to be used by the library trustees for books, automation costs, or in any way that may benefit the library, and to apply for state aid for the coming fiscal year. This requires a majority vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. And those opposed. Article 9 passes. Article 10, authorization of Board of Selectmen for grant applications.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to make such applications as may be necessary for federal and/or state funds or grants, to accept such funds or grants, and to expend those funds as required by the various acts, if and when such funds are received.
Motion has been made and seconded. Presentation by John Kader, Town Administrator.
This is a routine article which appears in the warrant every year. As it states, it allows the Board of Selectmen to apply for any federal or state grants. And I think most recently in the last fiscal year, we were able to apply and receive, I see some of the folks over here from the Town Common group, a $215,000 federal grant for that project. So it is worthwhile, and we do apply for any piece of grant money that we can acquire. So that's what it allows you to do.
Thank you. May I hear from the Appropriations Committee, please?
Mr. Moderator, the Appropriation Committee recommends approval of this article by unanimous vote.
Thank you. Questions? Issues? Hearing none. This is what you are voting on for Article 10. I move the town vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to make such application as may be necessary for federal and/or state funds or grants, to accept such funds or grants, and to expend those funds as required by various acts, if and when such funds are received. This requires a simple majority. All those in favor, please raise your cards. And those opposed. Article 10 passes. Article 11, revolving accounts, combining Articles 12 through 17. Selectman Amberson.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to combine Articles 12 through 17 as follows. Article 12 reauthorizes the Fire Department revolving fund. Article 13 reauthorizes the Animal Control revolving fund. Article 14 reauthorizes the Family and Youth Services Department revolving fund. Article 15 reauthorizes the Council on Aging revolving fund. Article 16 reauthorizes the Community Affairs Committee revolving fund. And Article 17, which authorizes the Library revolving fund. And in so voting, that the town vote to establish and/or reauthorize the revolving funds as stated in Articles 12 through 17 of the warrant, said revolving funds being authorized to and for the use of the Fire Department, Animal Control, Family and Youth Services Department, Council on Aging, Community Affairs Committee, and the Library, pursuant to the provisions of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53E and 1/2.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Mr. Kader.
This is a housekeeping article that requires us each year to reauthorize these accounts. Essentially, a revolving fund is used where fees are charged for program services. It allows those fees to be collected, held in a special fund, and used to offset the cost of providing those services. In the interest of time, Article 11 combines Articles 12 through 17 into one and reauthorizes those revolving funds in one action, essentially to move the meeting along a little bit. The only thing that's different this year from prior year reauthorizations is we've added a revolving fund in this year for the library because they've been doing so many great programs. They want to be able to retain some of the fees that they're able to charge for those programs to further their efforts to add additional programming. Otherwise, this is just a routine reauthorization.
Thank you. May I hear from Appropriations on Article 11, please?
Mr. Moderator, the Appropriations Committee unanimously recommends approval of this article.
Thank you. Questions? Hearing none, this is what you are voting on for Article 11. I move the town vote to combine Articles 12 through 17 as follows. Article 12 reauthorizes the Fire Department revolving fund. Article 13 reauthorizes the Animal Control revolving fund. Article 14 reauthorizes the Family and Youth Services Department revolving fund. Article 15 reauthorizes the Council on Aging revolving fund. Article 16 reauthorizes the Community Affairs Committee revolving fund. Article 17 authorizes the Library revolving fund. And in so voting, that the town vote to establish and/or reauthorize the revolving funds as stated in Articles 12 through 17 of the warrant. Said revolving funds being authorized to and for the use of the Fire Department, Animal Control, Family and Youth Services Department, Council on Aging, Community Affairs Committee, and the library pursuant to the provisions of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53E and 1/2. This is a simple majority vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. And those opposed. Article 11 passes. We then do a warp drive to Article 18.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to appropriate the sum of $175,000 for a reserve fund to provide for extraordinary or unforeseen expenditures in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 6, and to meet said appropriation, $175,000 be transferred from free cash.
Second. Motion has been made and seconded for Article 18. Presentation by Town Administrator Cudere.
Sure. Briefly, this is our emergency fund. We use any unreserved, undesignated fund balance, basically available funds, free cash, goes into this account. It's held by the Appropriations Committee, and in the event during the year something happens that was unforeseen, with a vote of that committee, they're able to release those funds. Most recently and historically, they tend to be funds that are used and released after some sort of an unexpected storm event, an ice storm, something of that nature where we've exceeded the snow and ice budget. That's almost, well, the last several years, that's been almost the exclusive use of that fund. And again, if any of those funds are not used during the course of the year, they go right back to free cash from where they came.
Thank you. May I hear from Appropriations on Article 18, please?
Appropriations Committee unanimously recommends approval of this article.
Thank you. Hearing no questions, this is what you are voting on for Article 18. I move the town vote to appropriate the sum of $175,000 for a reserve fund to provide for extraordinary or unforeseen expenditures in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 6, and to meet said appropriation, $175,000 be transferred from free cash. This is a majority vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. And those opposed. Article 18 passes. Article 19, Stabilization Fund Contribution. Selectman Rand.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to appropriate the sum of $200,000 to transfer to the Stabilization Fund, and to meet said appropriation, the sum of $200,000 be transferred from free cash.
Second. Motion has been made and seconded. Our presentation is by June Hubbard Ward, our Finance Director.
Thank you. This article provides for a $200,000 contribution from free cash to the Stabilization Fund or savings account of the town. This contribution would serve to bolster our level of reserves, which are an important indicator of our financial strength and stability. This helps to maintain our favorable AA1 bond rating and is important to maintain our reserves at an appropriate level for that.
Thank you. May I hear from Appropriations on Article 19, please?
Mr. Moderator, the Appropriations Committee recommends by unanimous vote approval of this article.
Thank you. Any questions? Hearing none, this is what you're voting on for Article 19. I move the town vote to appropriate the sum of $200,000 to transfer to the Stabilization Fund, and to meet said appropriation, the sum of $200,000 be transferred from free cash. Again, this is a majority vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. And those opposed. Article 19 passes. Article 20, Application of Bond Premium. Selectman Perot, please. The Board of Selectmen have been silenced.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to supplement each prior vote of the town that authorizes the borrowing of money to pay costs of capital projects, to provide that, in accordance with Chapter 44, Section 20 of the General Laws, the premium received by the town upon the sale of any bonds or notes thereunder, less any such premium applied to the payment of the costs of issuance of such bonds or notes, may be applied to pay project costs, and the amount authorized to be borrowed for each such project shall be reduced by the amount of any such premium so applied.
Motion has been made and seconded. Again, our Finance Director, June Hubbard Ward.
Thank you. This article seeks the authority which is now allowed by the Municipal Modernization Act, to use any bond premiums received through the issuance of debt for borrowing authorizations, authorized but not yet issued, so the interim borrowing authorizations, to offset the cost of the project. This would serve to reduce the total amount of the debt issued for the project if we received a net premium, and thereby that would reduce the interest cost for the life of that project.
Thank you. Again, Appropriations Committee, may I hear from you on Article 20?
Mr. Moderator, by unanimous vote, the Appropriations Committee recommends approval of this article.
Thank you. Any questions? Yes, over here.
39 Crawford Street. I'm sorry, I don't have a question about this. I have a question, a couple of articles back. We voted to reauthorize all the revolving funds, but not a recreation revolving fund. And in Article 4 in the town budget, it says that there is one.
I can answer that. The recreation revolving account is authorized through a different statute, and it doesn't require an annual reauthorization. It just was brought into existence, and it still exists. It doesn't require reauthorization.
Okay, so we're not abandoning them.
Right, no, certainly not. No, very successful program, we're certainly not abandoning it.
Any questions on Article 20? Hearing none, this is what you are voting on for Article 20. I move the town vote to supplement each prior vote of the town. Let me start again. I move the town vote to supplement each prior vote of the town that authorizes the borrower of money to pay cost of capital projects, to provide that in accordance with Chapter 44, Section 20 of the general laws, the premium received by the town upon the sale of any bonds or notes thereunder, less any such premium applied to the payment of the cost of issuance of such bond or notes may be applied to project cost, and the amount authorized to be borrowed for each such project shall be reduced by the amount of any such premium so applied. This is a majority vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. And those opposed. Article 20 passes. No, we're going to have a presentation from the town administrator on capital budget.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'm hoping this presentation will streamline the next 13 articles. Is this on?
Yes.
Okay, it's hard to hear. I apologize. I just want to take a moment to kind of set the table for the next 13 articles. I'm going to talk about a little bit about our plans in terms of our capital budget versus our capital improvement plan, give an overview of the articles, and explain the tax impact or lack thereof for these articles. It's very important that folks understand that despite the fact that these things show up, pieces of equipment or building projects show up on the warrant as individual warrant articles for you to vote on, they're not just individual things that have come forward on their own. It's part of a larger comprehensive plan. The town of Northborough plans out all of its capital acquisitions, equipment, building, land. We plan that out 6 years. And the way it works is that's our 6-year capital improvement plan. The current fiscal year 18 is our capital budget. So what you're going to be voting on over the next 13 articles is the fiscal 18 capital budget. And it's just important for folks to understand that this is part of a comprehensive approach to dealing with our equipment and our buildings and our infrastructure, that these things just don't come to you randomly, and all of these projects have been in the plan for 6 years. They move up each year until they come before this body for your consideration tonight. Now, Articles 21 through 29 and Article 23, these are the general fund or non-water and sewer enterprise fund projects, and those total just shy of $1.5 million. The water and sewer enterprise projects are Articles 30 to 32, and they're about $610,000. Total, we're looking at about $2.1 million in investments in terms of our equipment and our infrastructure. I'm happy to report to you tonight the roughly $1.5 million in funding for the general fund projects. that we're using one-time revenues. If you remember during the budget presentation, I talked about us eliminating one-time revenues in the operating budget for recurring expenses. Instead, we use those one-time revenues to pay for one-time capital projects. So 100% of those projects, with the exception of the water and sewer, can be voted tonight. There'll be no additional tax impact, no additional financing charges as a result. This pie chart, years ago, the big blue part, which is our pay-as-you-go portion, and actually the red triangle, or the red pie piece here, is the pay-as-you-go portion out of the water and sewer enterprise funds. The only thing that we're proposing to issue debt for is going to be the West pump station, the West Main Street pump station, which is about a $400,000 project. And so that would be bonded, and the debt service would be paid for by the sewer enterprise fund fees. But the thing that I want to draw your attention to in this pie chart is years ago, that big blue section of this pie chart used to be debt service. And that's how we used to pay for all of our equipment and most of our capital acquisitions. We'd finance it with debt. Since fiscal 10, with the adoption of the free cash policy, we have done a tremendous job of paying as we go for this capital. And what it does is it reduces the pressure on the operating budget because it reduces the debt service. No different than in your personal lives. If you stop using the credit card and you pay it off, and you can pay cash for things like a washer and dryer if they were to break, that's essentially what we're doing. When we talk about a pickup truck or a piece of equipment like that for the town of Northborough with a budget, an operating budget of our size, you know, a $100,000 pickup truck is the equivalent of a washer and dryer in your own personal finances. You know, if you can, you want to pay cash for those and not just charge them. And that's what we're able to do because we have excellent policies and we have a dedicated funding source to pay for this capital equipment. This capital budget, this set of 13 articles that's coming before you, is very important to us because what it does is it continues to invest in our equipment as well as our buildings. We're putting a roof on the Proctor Street School. This is the second phase of a roof project, and we're paying cash for that. We're buying cruisers. We're buying equipment for the fire department, equipment for DPW. This is a very critical piece of our long-term financial plan. And again, it's linking up one-time revenues to these one-time expenses. And all the general fund projects, again, with the exception of the West Main Street sewer pump station, which would be paid for out of user fees, all of these projects are on a pay-as-you-go basis with no additional tax impact. I'm happy to say since implementation of these policies, we've had about $13.2 million in pay-as-you-go capital. 9.1 of that is from free cash, essentially budget surplus at the end of the year. You know, one of the best practices you can do as a municipality is when you end the year and you've got some money left over because revenues came in a little better and maybe you were able to save some money on the appropriation side, rather than take those funds and roll them right into the budget base for next year, which is what a lot of municipalities do, we use those funds to pay for the capital. And it puts us overall in a much better financial condition. All of these projects that are coming before you have the unanimous support of the Appropriations Committee and the Financial Planning Committee. Again, these are part of a 6-year master plan. Every year it moves up. We have a funding source. We know when we're going to do the projects 6 years in advance, and there is no controversy or concern about any of these projects. The other thing is this year we are replacing a lot of equipment. As I said, we're doing a roof on the Proctor Street School. We don't have any major building projects. There are no Lincoln Street building projects, no library, senior center type project this year. This is routine equipment and building investments. So with that, we can move into the next article.
Thank you. Article 21, Selectman Pantasis, please.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to appropriate the sum of $65,000 for the use of the fire department for the purchase of one new forestry truck, and to meet the said appropriations, the sum of $65,000 be transferred from free cash.
Second. Motion has been made and seconded. We have a presentation by our Fire Chief, David Parenti.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. As it states in the warrant, the intent of this project is to replace 2 current forestry trucks, which are both 2005s, which are both pickup trucks that have been converted over to forestry trucks to have heavy tanks of water in the back, lots of equipment, and are really overloaded. We want to replace that with one new forestry truck, similar to what you see up on the screen. We would like to, or it's our intent to reuse as much equipment as possible that's still in serviceable condition. Hand tools, pumps, sirens, radios. We'll take those out of the old trucks and put them in the new truck. The final result will be a new vehicle that is designed for use as a forestry. Could be used in the winter for emergency response as well. Be safer for personnel, and it will reduce the overall fleet by one.
Thank you. May I hear from the Appropriations Committee on Article 21?
Mr. Moderator, the Appropriations unanimously recommends approval of this article.
And may I hear from Financial Planning?
Mr. Moderator, Financial Planning Committee unanimously approves this article.
Thank you. Any questions? Hearing none, this is what you're voting on for Article 21. I move the town vote to appropriate the sum of $65,000 for the use of the fire department for the purchase of one forestry truck, and to meet said appropriation, the sum of $65,000 be transferred from free cash. This is a majority vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. And those opposed? Article 21 passes.
Thank you.
Article 22, CIP Police Cruiser Replacement. Selectman Rutan.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to appropriate the sum of $87,000 for the use of the police department for the purchase of 2 new patrol vehicles, and to meet said appropriation, the sum of $87,000 be transferred from free cash.
Second. Motion has been made and seconded. We have a presentation from our police chief, William Liver.
Moderator, if you would indulge me for a few moments.
Certainly.
Speak to the article.
You'll have me arrested if I don't.
This time last year, I was one of the recipients of a certificate of appreciation from the town for 39 years, and I was on my way out the door to retirement. And a few short weeks after town meeting, as luck would have it, I was asked to be a police chief, which I am greatly honored to do. So I want to know if you want your plaque back. I took the certificate out, and I'm going to keep that just in case you don't give me another one. But in the interest of recycling and saving some money. Thank you. Now, Mr. Moderator, for the article. Very simply stated, the police department has had a very long-standing cruiser replacement schedule, which basically revolves around a combination of mileage and years in service. And it's usually about 4 miles or 100,000, 4 years or 100,000 miles. And I'm fond of always using someone else's arguments to justify our replacement schedule. As Mr. Coder mentioned earlier, back in 2014, the town commissioned a staffing study, which also included an operational analysis of the police department. And they identified, one of the areas they looked at was our vehicles. And it says that the department replaces its vehicles on a 4-year rotation schedule, and that the police department maintains excellent repair records. When we reviewed those, it showed that the vehicles, as they approach 100,000 mile mark, repair costs increase significantly and warrant vehicle replacement. They also noted that the vehicles are well cared for and properly maintained. We're simply here tonight to ask you to continue that so that our officers have safe and reliable vehicles with which to respond to emergencies in town. We're simply replacing 2 cars, a 2013 and a 2014 Cruiser. And that would be the extent of my presentation.
Thank you. May I hear from Appropriations Committee on Article 22, please?
Mr. Moderator, the Appropriation Committee, by unanimous vote, recommends approval of this article.
And may I hear from Financial Planning, please?
Mr. Moderator, the Financial Planning Committee unanimously approves this article.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Hearing none, this is what you're voting on for Article 22. I move the town vote to appropriate the sum of $87,000 for the use of the police department for the purchase of 2 new patrol vehicles, and to meet said appropriation, the sum of $87,000 be transferred from free cash. This is a majority vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. And those opposed? Article 22 passes. Article 23.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to appropriate the sum of $240,000 for the use of the DPW department for the purchase of a six-wheel dump truck with a spreader and plow, and to meet said appropriation, the sum of $240,000 be transferred from free cash.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. We have a presentation from our DPW Director, Scott Carpentier.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This request is to fund the replacement of a 40,000-pound gross vehicle weight 1995 International dump truck with salt spreader and plow. The useful life of these vehicles is 15 to 20 years. The new truck will be used for snow removal operations and to haul materials around during the construction season. The replacement vehicle will be similar to the one pictured here.
Thank you. May I hear from Appropriations on Article 23, please?
Mr. Moderator, the Appropriations Committee recommends approval of this article by unanimous vote.
Thank you. And may I hear from the Financial Planning Committee, please?
Mr. Moderator, the Financial Planning Committee unanimously approves this article.
Thank you. Are there any questions on Article 23, please? Hearing none, this is what you're voting on for Article 23. I move the town vote to appropriate the sum of $240,000 for the use of the DPW department for the purchase of a six-wheel dump truck with a spreader and plow, and to meet said appropriation, the sum of $240,000 be transferred from free cash. And this is a majority vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. And those opposed? Article 23 passes. Article 24, please.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to appropriate the sum of $95,000 for the use of the DPW department for the purchase of a one-ton dump truck with plow, and to meet said appropriation, the sum of $95,000 be transferred from free cash.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Mr. Carpentier, please.
This request is to fund the replacement of a 2006 F-350 dump body. These one-ton dump body trucks are the most used pieces of equipment in the entire fleet. Our public works employees use these vehicles to perform their everyday tasks, including materials and equipment movements. The useful life of these vehicles are 10 to 12 years. In addition, they're often paired with large six-wheel dump trucks during snow removal in the winter months. The truck you see pictured here is the one that will be replaced.
Thank you. May I hear from Appropriations on Article 24, please?
Mr. Moderator, the Appropriations Committee unanimously recommends approval of this article.
And from Financial Planning, please.
Mr. Moderator, the Financial Planning Committee unanimously approves this article.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Hearing none, this is what you're voting on for Article 24. I move the town vote to appropriate the sum of $95,000 for the use of the DPW department for the purchase of a one-ton dump truck with plow, and to meet said appropriation, the sum of $95,000 be transferred from free cash. This is a majority vote. All of those in favor, please raise your cards. And those opposed? Article 24 passes. Article 25. Selectman Rutan.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to appropriate the sum of $95,000 for the use of the DPW department for the purchase of a one-ton dump truck with chip body and plow, and to meet said appropriation, the sum of $95,000 be transferred from free cash.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Please.
This request is to fund the replacement of a 2000 F-350 dump body that's currently used for roadway patchwork. The useful life of these vehicles, again, is 10 to 12 years. The truck that you see here will be used with the tree division for wood chipping operations and with the roadway crew for general roadway maintenance. The truck you see pictured is similar to the one that will be purchased.
Thank you. May I hear from Appropriations on Article 25, please?
Mr. Moderator, the Appropriation Committee unanimously recommends approval of this article.
And from Financial Planning, please.
Mr. Moderator, the Financial Planning Committee unanimously approves this article.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Hearing no questions, this is what you're voting on for Article 25. I move the town vote to appropriate the sum of $95,000 for the use of the DPW department for the purchase of a 1-ton dump truck with chip body and plow. And to meet said appropriation, the sum of $95,000 be transferred from free cash. This is a majority vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Those opposed? Article 25 passes. Article 26. Selectman Perot, please.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to appropriate the sum of $65,000 for the use of the DPW department for the purchase of a chipper, and to meet said appropriation, the sum of $65,000 be transferred from free cash.
Motion has been made and seconded. Mr. Carpentier, please.
This request replaces the existing 2009 wood chipper we have in service. The useful life of this equipment is approximately 10 years. The specific model we have currently requires costly maintenance at an increased frequency over the past few years and warrants replacement with a newer design model. The model we currently have has had a historic problem with its clutches, which continues. The useful life, again, of this piece of equipment is 10 years, and we're seeking replacement with one similar to that's pictured here.
Thank you. Appropriations Committee, what say you?
We say that we recommend approval of this article unanimously.
And Financial Planning, what say you?
We say the Financial Planning Committee unanimously approves this article.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Hearing no questions, this is the vote for Article 26. I move the town vote to appropriate the sum of $65,000 for the use of the DPW department for the purchase of a chipper, and to meet said appropriation, the sum of $65,000 be transferred from free cash. This is a majority vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Those opposed? Article 26 passes. Article 27, Fisher Street Culvert Repair Design. Selectman Perot.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to appropriate the sum of $50,000 for the use of the DPW department to fund the design and construction bid documents for replacement of the Fisher Street culvert over Cold Harbor Brook, and to meet said appropriation, the sum of $50,000 be transferred from free cash.
Mr. Carpentier, please.
The Fisher Street culvert is in failing condition, evident by these photographs. One thing the photographs can't show you clearly is the deteriorated level of the structural webs on the beams. They have fist-sized holes through them, and there's next to no cover between the beam and the rolling traffic above. This article requests funding for the design and permitting for a replacement structure. We expect back before you again to request construction funding at a future town meeting. The department sees this as a critical piece of infrastructure. If it fails, will result in a long-term roadway closure at this culvert. This culvert is located on Fisher Street on the Crawford Street end.
Thank you. May I hear from Appropriations on Article 27, please?
Mr. Moderator, the Appropriations Committee recommends approval of this article by unanimous vote.
Thank you. And may I hear from the Financial Planning Committee?
Mr. Moderator, the Financial Planning Committee unanimously approves this article.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Hearing no questions, this is what you're voting on for Article 27. I move the town vote to appropriate the sum of $50,000 for the use of the DPW department to fund the design and construction bid documents for replacement of the Fisher Street culvert over Cold Harbor Brook, and to meet said appropriation, the sum of $50,000 be transferred from free cash. This is also a majority vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. And those opposed? Article 27 passes. Article 28, Crawford Street slope easements and retaining wall. Selectman Perot.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to acquire by gift, purchase, eminent domain, or otherwise 2 easements for slope and related purposes, including but not limited to for access and installation, construction, maintenance, repair and replacement, on such terms and conditions as the Board of Selectmen deems to be in the best interest of the town, on, upon, under, and over property identified as 298 Crawford Street, Assessor's Map 57, Lot 20, described in a deed recorded with the Worcester South District Registry of Deeds in Book 22916, page 331, and 300 Crawford Street, Assessor's Map 57, Lot 19, described in a deed recorded with the Worcester South District Registry of Deeds in Book 32742, page 239. Said easements shown on sketch plans on file with the town clerk, and further authorize the Board of Selectmen to execute all documents and take all actions necessary in connection therewith. And I further move the town vote to appropriate the sum of $200,000 for the use of the DPW department to fund the design and construction of a retaining wall on Crawford Street, and to meet said appropriation, the sum of $200,000 be transferred from free cash.
Motion has been made and seconded. Mr. Carpentier, please.
An existing fieldstone retaining wall supports the east side of Crawford Street near numbers 298 and 300. The wall is bowing along its face and losing roadway material through the open joints, especially during rain events. And there are stones continuously being dislodged from this wall. The wall is approximately 6 to 8 feet tall, varying height, and does support the roadway above. We've prepared preliminary engineering drawings to replace the wall with a shorter wall and a slope between. This article will allow the town to accept at no cost easements from the two abutters at number 298 and 300 Crawford Street for the slope and wall to be, as well as fund the final design and construction of the shorter wall. In addition, this work will allow us to continue our roadway improvements along this side of town, along Crawford Street and around that area.
Thank you. May I hear from Appropriations on Article 28, please?
Mr. Moderator, the Appropriations Committee by unanimous vote recommends approval of this article.
And may I hear from the Financial Planning Committee, please?
Mr. Moderator, the Financial Planning Committee unanimously approves this article.
Thank you. Are there any questions? This is will be a 2/3 vote, so tellers, please, on your toes. This is what you're voting on for Article 28. I move the town vote to acquire by gift, purchase, eminent domain, or otherwise 2 easements for slope and related purposes, including but not limited to for access and installation, construction, maintenance, repair, and replacement on such terms and conditions as the Board of Selectmen deems to be in the best interest of the town, on, upon, under, or over property identified as 298 Crawford Street, Assessor's Map 57, Lot 20, described in a deed recorded with the Worcester South District Registry of Deeds in Book 22916, page 331, and 300 Crawford Street, Assessor's Map 57, Lot 19, described in a deed recorded with the Worcester South District Registry of Deeds in Book 32742, page 239, said easements shown on sketch plans on file with the town clerk, and further authorize the Board of Selectmen to execute all documents and take all actions necessary in connection therewith. And I further move the town vote to appropriate the sum of $200,000 for the use of the DPW department to fund the design and construction of a retaining wall on Crawford Street, and to meet said appropriation, the sum of $200,000 be transferred from free cash. Again, this is a 2/3 vote, so please hold your cards up. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Those opposed? I declare that Article 27 has passed by a 2/3 vote. 28, I'm sorry. I declare that Article 28 has passed by a 2/3 vote. Numbers, I hate them. Article 29, DPW Road Improvements and Maintenance. Selectman Rutan.
Mr. Moderator. I move the town vote to appropriate the sum of $300,000 for the use of the DPW department for road improvements and maintenance, and to meet said appropriation, the sum of $300,000 be transferred from free cash.
Second. Motion has been made and seconded. Mr. Carpentier.
Thank you. This article requests funding for another year of roadway pavement management implementation. The 2016 pavement management study shows that past support by the townspeople has allowed the department to maintain the town's pavement condition index at 71. This slide depicts 3 annual budget scenarios for supporting pavement management. $500,000, which is the lower red line, $1.1 million, which is the middle green line, or $2 million, which is the upper blue line. As shown, in order for us to continue to maintain the current PCI level of 71, level funding of $1.1 million is necessary. Our current roadway funding is $800,000. This includes $500,000 from the state Chapter 90 funds and $300,000 from our DPW operating budget. Approval of this article will provide the final $300,000 needed to level fund the effort required to maintain our current roadway conditions at a PCI of 71.
Thank you. May I hear from Appropriations on Article 29, please?
Mr. Moderator, the Appropriations Committee by unanimous vote recommends approval of this article.
And may I hear from Financial Planning, please?
Mr. Moderator, the Financial Planning Committee unanimously approves this article.
Thank you. Are there any questions on Article 29? Yes.
Mr. Moderator, Fran Backstrand, 76 Cedar Hill Road. Just a question because I wasn't following the math. In the actual budget summary, we have highway construction and maintenance at the 1.5 mil. Is this 300,000 in that or in addition to that?
We have $296,000 allocated toward roadway maintenance in the highway operating budget under construction maintenance.
So
do you have the full budget book there?
So this is in addition to that. Okay. So we're using the free cash so that we can meet the needs of the roads in addition to what's in budget.
Right. We have $500,000 we get from the state. We have $300,000 that's in the operating budget dedicated specifically to roadways. That gets us to $800,000. In order to maintain the in order to achieve the $1.1 million to maintain that level green line, we're asking for $300,000 of capital funds to go from $800,000 to $1.1 million.
Okay. And that gets us to the 1.5 that's in on page 21. Right? I mean, where we have the general fund budget summary on page 21 for public works, highway construction and maintenance, $1,516,003, which it says is a change of $36,833.
Yeah, within that $1.5 million highway construction maintenance budget, embedded in there is $300,000 of operating budget money, which is here.
Which is coming out of free cash.
Yeah, the last line, DPW operating budget, $300,000. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Any further questions on Article 29? Hearing none, this is what you're voting on for Article 29. I move the town vote to appropriate the sum of $300,000 for the use of the DPW department for road improvements and maintenance, and to meet said appropriation, the sum of $300,000 be transferred from free cash. This is a majority vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. And those opposed. Article 29 passes. Article 30, Sewer Inspection Camera System.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to appropriate the sum of $110,000 for the use of the DPW department for the purchase of a sewer inspection camera system, and to meet said appropriations, the sum of $110,000 be transferred from sewer enterprise free cash.
Second. Motion has been made and seconded. Mr. Carpentier, please.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The sewer division is often called to diagnose collection pipe issues and concerns. An inspection camera is a critical tool used to locate and define the problems so that the corrective actions and corrective measures we implement can occur in the exact location of the problem. This saves the department and the taxpayers money and us time in the middle of the night. Also, this camera is used in conjunction with the recently purchased pipe jetter to confirm cleaning, to locate service connections, and to define the needs for future maintenance. The sewer camera and its appurtenance is similar to what's pictured here.
Thank you. May I hear from Appropriations on Article 30, please?
Mr. Moderator, the Appropriations Committee recommends approval of this article by unanimous vote.
Thank you. And from Financial Planning, please.
Mr. Moderator, the Financial Planning Committee unanimously approves this article.
Thank you. Any questions on Article 30? Hearing none, this is what you're voting on. And this is a majority vote. I move the town vote to appropriate the sum of $110,000 for the use of the DPW department for the purchase of a sewer inspection camera system, and to meet said appropriation, the sum of $110,000 be transferred from sewer enterprise free cash. Again, this is a majority vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. And those opposed. Article 30 passes. Article 31.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to appropriate the sum of $400,000 for the use of the DPW department to fund the design and construction of improvements to the West Main Street sewer pump station, and to meet said appropriation, the sum of $400,000 be raised by borrowing in accordance with the provisions of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 8, Subset 14, or any other enabling authority, and the treasurer, with the approval of the Board of Selectmen, be authorized to issue bonds or notes therefore.
There's more.
And further, that any premium received by the town upon the sale of any bonds or notes approved by this vote, less any premium applied to the payment of the cost of issuance of such bonds or notes, may be applied to the payment of costs approved by this vote in accordance with Chapter 44, Section 20 of the General Laws, thereby reducing by a like amount the amount authorized to be borrowed to pay such costs.
Motion has been made and seconded. Mr. Carpentier, please.
This pump station was originally constructed in 1995. Since that time, there's been significant development upstream, including the Lincoln Street pump station and the entire Pine Haven Drive neighborhood. The station pumps and motors are undersized, and they often suffer failure. There are controls issues in the station that are outdated. The request will fund the design and construction of sorely needed improvements at this critical piece of infrastructure.
Thank you. May I hear from Appropriations on Article 31, please?
Mr. Moderator, the Appropriations Committee, by unanimous vote, recommends approval of this article.
Thank you. And may I hear from the Financial Planning Committee, please?
Mr. Moderator, the Financial Planning Committee unanimously approves this article.
Thank you. Are there any questions on Article 31? Hearing none, this is what you're voting on for Article 31. I move the town vote to appropriate the sum of $400,000 for the use of the DPW department to fund the design and construction of improvements to the West Main Street sewer pump station, and to meet said appropriation, the sum of $400,000 be raised by borrowing in accordance with the provisions of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 8, 14, or any other enabling authority, and the treasurer, with the approval of the Board of Selectmen, be authorized to issue bonds or notes therefore. And further, that any premium received by the town upon the sale of any bonds or notes approved by this vote, less any premium applied to the payment of the cost of issuance of such bond or notes, be applied to the payment of cost approved by this vote in accordance with Chapter 44, Section 20 of the General Laws, thereby reducing by a like amount the amount authorized to be borrowed to pay such costs. This requires a 2/3 vote, so tellers, be aware. All those in favor, please raise your cards. And those opposed? I declare that Article 31 has passed by a 2/3 vote. Article 32.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to appropriate the sum of $100,000 for the use of the DPW department for the purchase of a 1-ton service truck with plow for the Water and Sewer Enterprise Divisions of the Department of Public Works, and to meet said appropriations, the sum of $60,000 be transferred from Water Enterprise free cash, and the sum of $40,000 be transferred from Sewer Enterprise free cash, for a total of $100,000.
Motion has been made and seconded. Mr. Carpentier, please.
Thank you again, Mr. Moderator. This request is to fund the replacement of a 2008 Ford F-450 utility body with plow and frame-mounted crane. The vehicle is used daily to perform regular inspections and general maintenance of the town's water and sewer system, as well as for 24-hour response to emergency needs. This vehicle carries a fuel tank in its rear, as well as a frame-mounted crane. It is the most heavily used vehicle in the Water Sewer Division. The useful life of these vehicles is 10 to 12 years. This vehicle will also assist with snow removal during the snow events.
Thank you. May I hear from Appropriations on Article 32, please?
Mr. Moderator, the Appropriations Committee, by unanimous vote, recommends approval of this article.
Thank you. And may I hear from the Financial Planning Committee, please?
Mr. Moderator, the Financial Planning Committee unanimously approves this article.
Thank you. Are there any questions on Article 32? Hearing none, this is what you're voting on for Article 32. I move the town vote to appropriate the sum of $100,000 for the use of the DPW department for the purchase of a 1-ton service truck with plow for the Water and Sewer Enterprise Divisions of the Department of Public Works. And to meet said appropriation, the sum of $60,000 be transferred from Water Enterprise free cash, and the sum of $40,000 be transferred from Sewer Enterprise free cash, for a total of $100,000. This is a majority vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. And those opposed. Article 32 passes. Article 33, please. Patricia Kress from the Northborough School Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $300,000 for the use of the school department for roof repairs to the Proctor School, and to meet said appropriation, the sum of $300,000 to be transferred from free cash.
Motion has been made and seconded. Presentation by Christine Johnson, School Superintendent.
The first phase of the Proctor Elementary School roof repair was approved at town meeting in 2015 and completed in fiscal 2016. This included the repair and restoration of the flat roof, and included in the repair failing field seams, roof penetration flashings, and walls with new membrane and primers. This article requests funding for the second phase of the roof project. It involves replacing the existing 13,000 square feet of shingled, pitched roof at the Proctor Elementary School. The existing 25-year-old pitch roof would be replaced with a metal roofing system carrying a warranty of 30 years and a projected lifespan of 50 years, similar in nature to the Lincoln Street School and Peasley School roof replacement projects, which use the same metal roofing system. An updated roof study was conducted in 2016, which estimates the pitch roof replacement at $300,000.
Thank you. May I hear from the Appropriations Committee on Article 33, please?
Mr. Moderator, the Appropriations Committee recommends approval of this article by unanimous vote.
Thank you. And may I hear from the Financial Planning Committee as well?
Mr. Moderator, the Financial Planning Committee unanimously approves this article.
Thank you. Are there any questions on Article 33? Hearing none, this is what you're voting on. I move the town vote to appropriate the sum of $300,000 for the use of the school department for roof repairs to the Proctor School, and to meet said appropriation, the sum of $300,000 be transferred from free cash. This is a majority vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. And those opposed. Article 33 passes. Article 34, please. Selectman Rutan.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to appropriate the sum of $500,000 in FY 2017 to pay down costs approved under Article 31 of the April 2014 annual town meeting, and to meet said appropriation, the sum of $500,000 be transferred from Water Enterprise free cash.
Motion has been made and seconded. Mr. Carpentier, please.
Thank you again, Mr. Moderator. Funding for the water meter replacement and billing system project in the amount of $1.5 million was approved at the April 2014 annual town meeting. The project's now nearing completion and is ready for permanent financing. This article will allow the town to utilize an MWRA zero-interest loan to fund approximately $1 million of the debt associated with this project. The remaining $500,000 will be paid for out of retained earnings from the Water Enterprise Fund.
Thank you. May I hear from Appropriations Committee on Article 34, please?
Mr. Moderator, the Appropriations Committee, by unanimous vote, recommends approval of this article.
Thank you. Are there any questions on Article 34? Hearing none, this is what you're voting on for Article 34. I move the town vote to appropriate the sum of $500,000 in FY 2017 to pay down cost approved under Article 31 of the April 2014 annual meeting. And to meet said appropriation, the sum of $500,000 be transferred from water enterprise free cash. This is a majority vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. And those opposed? Article 34 passes. Article 35, Allen Street Sidewalk Easements. Selectman Rutan, please.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to acquire, by gift, purchase, eminent domain, or otherwise, 2 easements for sidewalk and related purposes, including, but not limited to, for access and installation, construction, maintenance, repair, and replacement, on such terms and conditions as the Board of Selectmen deems it to be in the best interest of the town, on, upon, under, and over property identified as 15 Allen Street, Assessor's Map 46, Lot 136, described in a deed recorded with the Worcester South District Registry of Deeds in Book 17286, page 333, and 21 Allen Street, Assessor's Map 46, Lot 139, described in a deed recorded with the Worcester South District Registry of Deeds in Book 42942, page 288, said easements shown on sketch plans on file with the town clerk, and further authorize the Board of Selectmen to execute all documents and take all actions necessary in connection therewith.
Motion has been made and seconded. We have a presentation by our town engineer, Fred Litchfield.
Thank you. These sidewalk easements are being provided by 2 Allen Street landowners along the frontage of their properties. These easements are being provided to the town at no cost. The Public Works Department intends to extend the sidewalk on Allen Street from the Allen Street Bridge, where it currently exists, to East Main Street, thus creating a loop from Hudson Street, Allen Street, East Main Street, Route 20, and then back to Hudson Street.
Thank you. May I hear from, I don't need to hear from anyone. There is no opinion here. Okay. Are there any questions on Article 35? Hearing none, this is what you're voting on for Article 35. I move the town vote to acquire by gift, purchase, eminent domain, or otherwise 2 easements for sidewalk and related purposes, including but not limited to for access and installation, construction, maintenance, repair, and replacement on such terms and conditions as the Board of Selectmen deems to be in the best interest of the town, on, upon, under, or over property identified as 15 Allen Street, Assessor's Map 46, Lot 136, described in a deed recorded with the Worcester South District Registry of Deeds in Book 17286, page 333, and 21 Allen Street, Assessor's Map 46, Lot 139, described in a deed recorded with the Worcester South District Registry of Deeds in Book 42942, page 288. Said easements shown on sketch plans on file with the town clerk, and further authorize the Board of Selectmen to execute all documents and take all action necessary in connection therewith. This one is a majority vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. And those opposed? Article 35 passes. Article 36, Consolidated Personnel Board.
Mr. Moderator, I move the board vote to amend the consolidated personnel bylaw as shown in the handout entitled Article 36, Consolidated Personnel Bylaw Amendments, 2017 Annual Town Meeting.
Second. Motion has been made and seconded. We do have a presentation from Kim Foster, our Assistant Town Administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The amendments to the personnel bylaw before you tonight are printed on pages 39 to 43 of your warrant, and they include a July 1st 2% general wage increase for non-union municipal personnel. In accordance with the personnel bylaw, this reflects the average increase that will be granted to all personnel represented by the 5 municipal employee unions. These increases have been included in the budget that was approved earlier tonight under Article 4. Additionally, there are 2 positions we are seeking to classify. The first is a deputy fire chief position. I'll note that we are not funding this position in the current year, but you've heard earlier reference to the public safety staffing study, and after we hire the final firefighter paramedic and get all of our shifts to 5 staff, the next position we'll be looking to add, as resources permit, will be a deputy chief. The other position we're looking to reinstate tonight is a special police officer position, At its July 18, 2016 meeting, the Board of Selectmen considered a proposal from the police chief to reinstate this position. This is a position that will allow us to meet increased requests for extra detail police services. It also will provide greater accountability in that these will be staff hired by the town. They will be part-time temporary employees. They will be trained, and they will be able to respond to other emergencies as necessary. Initially, the primary intent is that they'll be used for traffic details. Lastly, we have adjusted the wage ranges for several of our seasonal and part-time temporary positions, such as library pages, recreation department, summer camp staff, and public works summer seasonal staff, following recent increases in the Massachusetts minimum wage rate.
Thank you. May I hear from the Personnel Board on Article 36?
Unanimous approval of this article.
Thank you. And may I hear from the Municipal Code and Bylaw Committee on Article 36?
Mr. Moderator, the Municipal Code and Bylaws Committee unanimously recommends approval of this article.
Thank you. Are there any questions on Article 36? Hearing none, this is what you're voting on. I move the town vote to amend the consolidated personnel bylaws as shown in the handout entitled Article 36, Consolidated Personnel Bylaw Amendments, 2017 Annual Town Meeting. This is a majority vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. And those opposed. Article 36 passes. Article 37, open space. John Campbell. Oh, here he comes.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to transfer the care, custody, and control of the following described land. Assessors Map 43, Parcel 13, 20.95 acres, 0 Church Street. Assessors Map 43, Parcel 7, 1.64 acres, 0 West Street. Assessors Map 56, Parcel 52, 0.92 acres, 0 West Street. Assessors Map 56, Parcel 54, 0.92 acres, 0 West Street. Assessors Map 56, Parcel 55, 1.19 acres, 0 West Street. Assessors Map 56, Parcel 56, 1.05 acres, 0 West Street. Assessors Map 56, Parcel 57, 1.11 acres, 0 West Street, to the Conservation Commission for open space and pass as recreation purposes pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 48, Section 8C.
Motion has been made and seconded. Mr. Campbell, when you're ready.
Good evening, I'm John Campbell, Spruce Hill Drive, and I'm here tonight representing the Open Space Committee and the Community Preservation Committee, which means you're stuck with me for the next 10 articles, so I will try to be quick, or quicker than last year, as the case may be. This is the first of 3 articles dealing with land that the town already owns, which the Open Space Committee recommends putting into permanent conservation protection. All of them abut existing conservation land, and we felt would add to the town's stock of open space. In this case, these are a series of small parcels, well, small and one big one that are in between West and Church Street, and they essentially abut the existing conservation land in the Cold Harbor Trail Network area. So again, this is the first of 3 we'll ask for you to vote on.
Thank you. May I hear from the Conservation Commission on Article 37, please? Is there someone here? Do you know if it was unanimous? Yes. It was unanimous. Okay, thank you. Are there any questions on Article 37? Hearing none, this is what you're voting on. I move the town vote to transfer the care, custody, and control of the following described land. Assessors Map 43, Parcel 13, 20.95 acres, 0 Church Street. Assessors Map 43, Parcel 7, 1.64 acres, 0 West Street. Assessors Map 56, Parcel 52, 0.92 acres, 0 West Street. Assessors Map 56, Parcel 54, 0.92 acres, 0 West Street. Assessors Map 56, Parcel 55, 1.19 acres, 0 West Street. Assessors Map 56, Parcel 56, 1.05 acres, 0 West Street. And Assessors Map 56, Parcel 57, 1.11 acres, 0 West Street, to the Conservation Commission for open space and passive recreation purposes pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 8C. This Thank you. This vote requires a 2/3 vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. And those opposed? I declare that Article 37 has passed by a 2/3 margin. Article 38. Mr. Campbell.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to transfer the care, custody, and control of the following described land. Assessors Map 101, Parcel 139, 31.88 acres, 374 Davis Street, to the Conservation Commission for open space and passive recreation purposes pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 8C.
Motion has been made and seconded. Mr. Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This parcel, if you can see on the map, abuts the Indian Meadows Golf Course, which is to the lower left of it. It's primarily wetlands, if you've ever been in that part of the town. However, again, we felt it was best to be permanently protected, and maybe someday the golf course will also be. Again, this is for this one parcel off of Davis Street. Thank you.
Thank you. And I did receive a notification from the Conservation Commission that they unanimously supported, motion 38 as well. Motion, Article 38, I'm sorry. Are there any questions on Article 38? Hearing none, this is what you're voting on for Article 38. I move the town vote to transfer the care, custody, and control of the following described land. Assessors Map 101, Parcel 139, 31.88 acres, 374 Davis Street, to the Conservation Commission for open space and passive recreation purposes, pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 8C. This is a 2/3 vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. And those opposed? I declare that Article 38 has passed by the 2/3 margin. Article 39. Mr. Campbell.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to transfer the care, custody, and control of the following described land. Assessors Map 80, Parcel 27, 3.6 acres, 0 off Crawford Street, to the Conservation Commission for open space and passive recreation purposes pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 8C.
Motion has been made and seconded. Again, I'm referring to my memo from Mr. Greg Young, Chairman of the Conservation Commission. And for Article 39, the Commission unanimously supported the transfer of town-owned land. Are there any questions on Article 39? Hearing none, this is what you're voting on. I move the town vote to transfer the care, custody, and control of the following described land. Assessors Map 80, Parcel 27, 3.6 acres, 0 off Crawford Street, to the Conservation Commission for open space and passive recreation purposes, pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 8C. This is also a 2/3 vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. And those opposed? I declare that Article 39 has passed by the 2/3 margin. Article 40. Mr. Campbell.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to appropriate the sum of $30,000 from the Community Preservation Fund revenues to the Northborough Conservation Commission for the whole lake sonar treatment of Bartlett Pond.
Motion has been made and seconded. Mr. Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Articles 40 to 46 are this year's Community Preservation Committee recommendations for funds to be appropriated from our Community Preservation Fund. Some reminders, as I try to do every year, the funds in this account are provided by a 1.5% surcharge on your property taxes, plus state matching funds. And to date, covering the year through the end of 2016, we've received over $2 million in state match. That averages around 47% a year. As we discussed, some years it was higher, some years it was lower, but still extremely substantial that we've gotten that much state money. This year we have about $548,000 to allocate. And again, as a reminder, by law we are committed to allocate at least 10% towards open space preservation projects, 10% for affordable housing programs, and 10% towards historical preservation. Of the remaining 70%, we can spread it across any of those three core areas, as well as recreation projects, which are considered separately. This article is a continuation of a program we ran a few years ago, also recommended by the Conservation Commission. These are some prior year photographs of the Bartlett Pond area, and a beautiful resource in town. Unfortunately, the invasive weeds eventually start to take over. So this article would recommend $30,000 from our current year revenues go toward the systematic herbicide treatment to reduce the invasive weeds.
Thank you. May I hear from Appropriations on Article 40, please?
Mr. Moderator, the Appropriations Committee recommends approval of this article. Oh, it's getting late. Approval of this article by unanimous vote.
Thank you. Are there any questions on Article 40? Hearing none, this is what you're voting on. I move the town vote to appropriate the sum of $30,000 from the Community Preservation Fund revenues to the Northborough Conservation Commission for the whole lake sonar treatment of Bartlett Pond. This is a majority vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. And those opposed. Article 40 passes. Article 41, Community Preservation Funds Trails Committee. Mr. Campbell.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to appropriate the sum of $30,000 from the Conservation Preservation Fund revenues to the Northborough Trails Committee for trail maintenance operations, purchase of signs and kiosks for the trails, and upkeep of trail bridges and water bridges.
The motion has been made and seconded, and I'll give Mr. Campbell a second to get back to the podium.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. As I said before, the Trails Committee in Northborough is one of our best assets and certainly one of our best bargains. They do a tremendous amount of work all by volunteers and really don't even place that much demand on the community preservation funds. This year they've asked for $30,000. That would allow them to maintain existing trails, repair bridges, expand the trail network, add signs and kiosks to help direct you to the right trail and information about what's out there. And again, their work has just been phenomenal. We have a tremendous trail network in town. Anybody new in town, check it out. Just go online or even Facebook, look at the trail network, use it all year long. Winter, summer, it's a great resource.
Thank you. And a recommendation from Appropriations, please.
Mr. Moderator, the Appropriations Committee unanimously recommends approval of this article.
Thank you. Are there any questions on Article 41? Hearing none, this is what you're voting on. I move the town vote to appropriate the sum of $30,000 from the Community Preservation Fund revenues to the Northborough Trails Committee for trail maintenance and operations, purchase of signs and kiosks for the trails, and upkeep of trail bridges and water bridges. This is a majority vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. And those opposed. Article 41 passes. Article 42, transfer to NAHC.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to appropriate the sum of $100,000 from the Community Preservation Fund revenues to the Northborough Affordable Housing Corporation for the purpose of creation of affordable housing.
Motion has been made and seconded.
Well, here again, I come to praise the efforts of another organization in town, the Northborough Affordable Housing Corporation, and the tremendous advances they've made in providing affordable housing for our citizens and senior citizens. The picture in front of you is the senior affordable housing project that their efforts achieved a couple of years ago with the help of CPA funds. They're now involved in a current project. If you haven't seen it or are unaware, it's the two buildings currently next to the Trinity Church, which are being turned into 4 affordable housing apartments. This is an excellent example of their work in leveraging the money they have by partnering with Habitat for Humanity, who is in essence contributing about 50% of this project. So Article 42 only asks that we take another $100,000 from CPA revenue and attribute it to the Northborough Affordable Housing's available budget for future projects that they're already in stages of working on, perhaps for the next set of affordable projects that we'll bring to next town meeting.
Thank you. May I hear from appropriations on Article 42, please?
Mr. Moderator, by a unanimous vote, the Appropriations Committee recommends approval of this article.
Thank you. May I hear from the Financial Planning Committee on Article 42?
Mr. Moderator, the Financial Planning Committee unanimously approves this article.
Are there any questions on Article 42? Hearing none, this is what you're voting on. I move the town vote to appropriate the sum of $100,000 from the Community Preservation Fund revenues to the Northborough Affordable Housing Corporation for the purpose of the creation of affordable housing. This requires a majority vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. And those opposed. Article 42 passes. Article 43, Mr. Campbell.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to appropriate the sum of $70,000 from the Community Preservation Fund revenues and $307,400 from the Community Preservation Fund unreserved fund for a total of $377,400 to the Northborough Department of Public Works for Phase 2 of the project for creation of a town common at 0, 39, and 45 West Main Street as shown on Assessor's Map 63 as parcels 159, 157, and 158. Pursuant to the provisions of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 45, Section 3, as it may hereafter be amended, and any enabling authority related to public parks and playgrounds, said town common to be managed and controlled by the Department of Public Works, to authorize the Department of Public Works to file on behalf of the town of Northborough any and all applications deemed necessary for grants and or reimbursements from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts deemed necessary under the Land and Water Conservation Fund Act, PL 88-578, 78, Stat 897, as amended, and any other law in any way connected with the scope of this article, and to authorize the Department of Public Works to enter into all agreements and execute any and all instruments as may be necessary to accomplish said purpose.
Motion has been made and seconded. Mr. Campbell.
All right, well, that was a really long article that I hope leads to a very short discussion and a positive vote for Phase 2 of Town Common. Let's review. Last year, we discussed and all approved the Town Common Phase 1, $480,000, and that was for the first phase of actually purchasing the 45 West Main Street parcel and approving the destruction of the existing old structure at 39 and developing the engineering specs and sending out bids for the contractors to build the common. All of that is either done or underway, and now we're into Phase 2. The best thing about this article is it's not going to cost as much as you see. By the efforts of some in the Open Space Committee and in the Town Common Committee, they got a National Park Service grant approved that gives us a reimbursement of $215,000 after the project is completed. So our net is really only $162,000. The extra money will go back into the community preservation reserves. So this is really a good deal. What you see before you is the initial town common design plan. It's from this and the initial specs that the actual design drawings will get started, and you'll start to see some of those. I'm sure there'll be some publication of those over the coming year as work begins. And the town common is really an exciting idea that I think we're all looking forward to as another way to bring people together and enhance what the town looks like, not only at big events such as parades and Apple Fest and so on, but every day of the week when you drive down Main Street. So again, in review, Phase 1's approved. This is just for approval of Phase 2, $377,400, from which we'll get reimbursed over $200,000 with a state grant. Hope we can get your support.
Thank you. May I hear from Appropriations on Article 43, please?
Mr. Moderator, the Appropriations Committee, by unanimous vote, recommends approval of this article.
Thank you. May I hear from Financial Planning Committee on Article 43?
Mr. Moderator, the Financial Planning Committee unanimously approves this article.
And may I hear from the Board of Selectmen on Article 43?
Mr. Moderator, the Board of Selectmen unanimously approves this article.
Thank you. Are there any questions on Article 43? If not, this is what you're voting on. I move the town vote to appropriate the sum of $75,000 from the Community Preservation Fund revenues and $307,400 from the Community Preservation Fund Unreserved Fund for a total of $377,400 to the Northborough Department of Public Works for Phase 2 of the project for creation of a town common at 0, 39, and 45 West Main Street, as shown on Assessor's Map 63 as parcels 159, 157, and 3. I'm sorry, 159, 157, and 158 pursuant to the provisions of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 45, Section 3, as it may hereafter be amended, and any enabling authority related to public parks and playgrounds, said common to be managed and controlled by the Department of Public Works, to authorize the Department of Public Works to file on behalf of the town of Northborough any and all applications deemed necessary for grants and or reimbursements from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts deemed necessary under the Land and Water Conservation Fund Act, PL 88-578 or 78 Statute 897 as amended, and any other law or any way connected with the scope of this article, and to authorize the Department of Public Works to enter in all agreements and execute any and all instruments as may be necessary to accomplish said purchase and project. This is a majority vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. And those in opposition. Article 43 passes. Article 44, Green Street Debt Service.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to appropriate the sum of $45,900 from the Community Preservation Fund revenues to the Northborough Community Preservation Committee for debt service and expenses associated with the open space land acquisition for the fiscal year 2018.
Motion has been made and seconded.
Okay, this is a matter of housekeeping. This is our final bond payment on the Green Street land acquisition, formerly known as Shunder's Meadow. And after this, we won't owe any more money. Another great trails and open space resource saved by Northborough. Thank you.
Thank you. May I hear from Appropriations on Article 44, please?
By unanimous vote, the Appropriations Committee recommends approval of this article.
Thank you. Are there any questions on Article 44? Hearing none, this is what you're voting on. I move the town vote to appropriate the sum of $45,900 from the Community Preservation Fund revenues to the Northborough Community Preservation Committee for debt service and expenses associated with the open space land acquisition for the fiscal year 2018. This is a majority vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. And those in opposition. Article 44 passes. Article 45, please.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to appropriate the sum of $55,000 from the Community Preservation Fund revenues and place said amount in the Community Preservation Historic Resources Reserve Fund for the purpose of future historical property preservation or acquisition.
Motion has been made and seconded.
Well, obviously, we've had some big historical preservation articles in the past couple of years, and the reserves have been used towards the White Cliffs preservation and the First Parish preservation, graveyard renovations, and so on. So this is an article to simply put a minimum amount in the historic reserve, which will add to their resources for future preservation projects.
Thank you. May I hear from Appropriations on Article 45, please?
Mr. Moderator, by unanimous vote, the Appropriations Committee recommends approval of this article.
Thank you. Any questions on Article 45? Hearing none, this is what you're voting on. I move the town vote to appropriate the sum of $55,000 from the Community Preservation Fund revenues and place said amount in the Community Preservation Historic Resources Reserve Fund for the purpose of future historical property preservation or acquisition. And things went dark out there. This is a majority vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. And can we bring the house lights up a bit? I'm having difficulty seeing. And those opposed? Article 45 has passed. Article 46. Thank you.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to appropriate the sum of $25,000 from the Community Preservation Fund revenues to the Northborough Community Preservation Committee for expenses associated with the implementation of the Community Preservation Act, including but not limited to clerical assistance, office supplies, property surveys, appraisals, attorney's fees, and other professional services, recording fees, printing, and all other necessary and proper expenses for the fiscal year 2018.
Motion has been made and seconded. Mr. Campbell.
Thank you. This is our operating article that we present each year. Under the CPA law, we're allowed to allocate up to 5% of the projected revenues towards expenses, which for the most part are used for appraisals, occasionally for materials, and so on. So again, this is more housekeeping for the ongoing execution of the CPC committee.
Thank you. May I hear from Appropriations on Article 46, please?
Mr. Moderator, by unanimous vote, the Appropriations Committee recommends approval of this article.
Thank you. Any questions on Article 46? If not, this is what you're voting on. I move the town vote to appropriate the sum of $25,000 from the Community Preservation Fund revenues to the Northborough Community Preservation Committee for expenses associated with the implementation of the Community Preservation Act, including but not limited to clerical assistance, office supplies, property surveys, appraisals, attorney's fees, and other professional services, recording fees, printing, and all other necessary and proper expenses for the fiscal year 2018. This is a majority vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. And those opposed? Article 46 passes.
Thank you for your support.
Article 47, Adoption of Stretch Energy Code. Attorney George Pember from the Planning Board.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town to vote to amend Part 2 of the Northborough Town Code, Part 2, General Legislation, by adding a new Chapter 2-18, Stretch Energy Code, as set forth in the warrant and shown in underlying text for the purpose of regulating the design and construction of buildings for the effective use of energy pursuant to Appendix 115AA of the Massachusetts Building Code, 780 CMR, the Stretch Energy Code, including future additions, amendments, or modifications thereto, with an effective date of July 1, 2017. What we're trying to do in this one, very briefly, is to get the town to achieve the status as a green community. When I first heard about this quite a number of years ago, I thought we ought to do it just as a matter of general principle because it's the right thing to do, to be a green community. Subsequently, I've discovered that there's a lot of money involved in this, and that if you're a green community, you can be eligible for an awful lot of grants. There's no guarantee, but it looks like the first year we could get as much as $145,000. And then there could be grants every single year to help make us more energy efficient. This is a winner for the town for sure. There's several criteria that we have to meet, and we've met all but 2 of them. And tonight we're going to meet the last 2. The first one is the stretch energy code. I'm not the expert on the building code, so I'm going to ask Joe Achu if he would make that presentation, please.
Thank you, George. Currently, the Board of Building Regulations and Standards, also known as the BBRS, adopt new amendments to the State Building Code 780 CMR every 3 years. The BBRS currently has adopted amendments for the 9th edition of the State Building Code 780 CMR as it pertains to the Stretch Energy Code, which provides for performance-based testing rather than prescriptive methods. These amendments are to the provisions of the new base code of the 2015 IECC, also known as the International Energy Conservation Code, and ASHRAE 90.1 2013 edition. The stretch code is based on the Energy Star home's 20-plus years and has been in effect in other communities for over 6 years. The stretch code was originally added to the amendments of the 8th edition State Building Code 780 CMR and were the provisions of the 2009 IECC. And as building science has evolved, so have the codes. In adopting the stretch code, we do not give up our local control as a town and may choose to opt out at a later date if we so decide. In adopting the stretch code, your existing home will not need to be unnecessarily updated to meet the stretch code. The stretch code only applies to new construction of residential buildings and all commercial buildings greater than 100,000 square feet, as well as high energy use commercial buildings greater than 40,000 square feet, such as supermarkets, laboratories, and refrigerated warehouses. If you do an addition, alteration, renovation, or repair to your home, you will need only to comply with the base energy code of the 2015 IECC, which came into full effect on January 1st of this year. I'll hand it back to George, or if there's any questions.
Is that the presentation?
That is the presentation,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you. May I hear from the planning board?
Mr. Moderator, the planning board voted unanimously to support this article.
Thank you. And the municipal code and bylaw committee?
Mr. Moderator, the Municipal Code and Bylaws Committee unanimously recommends approval.
Thank you. And may I hear from the Board of Selectmen, please?
Mr. Moderator, the Board of Selectmen unanimously approves this article.
Thank you. Are there any questions on Article 47? Yes, sir.
Mark Tessier, 35 Colburn Street. No questions, but I do have some objections to this, and I recommend a no vote on it. The biggest reason is the way you can tell if something is usually environmentally okay is if it's financially okay as well. In other words, is it cheap? Too many of these codes rely on only operating costs and not initial costs. And I'll give you an example of what I mean. I think that everyone can follow easily. The Prius versus the Fit. The Prius is considered a green car. The Fit is not. The Prius gets better mileage. It's also more money. The reason it's more money is because it uses a lot of rare earth metals. They take a lot of energy to mine. They take a lot of energy to process. When you pass an article like this, you're forcing people to do things a certain way, and you're ignoring, at their expense, the initial cost of doing them. And when you ignore the initial cost, you're also ignoring the cost of building the thing in the first place. The operating costs might be less, but the initial costs aren't. If we go back to our Prius example again, if you buy the Prius and you drive it 50,000 miles a year at today's gas prices, it's probably an environmentally good decision also. If you're only going to drive 5,000 miles a year, then the fit is in fact a better environmental and a better financial choice. By voting for these two articles, you are taking away that choice. When energy prices go up and down, it makes a difference whether this code is environmentally sound or not. I've been in the energy and the power industry for over 30 years now, and I've seen lots of bad green environmental regulations come through. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on Article 47? Hearing none, this is what you're voting on. I move the town vote to amend Part 2 of the Northborough Town Code, Part 2, General Legislation, by adding a new chapter, 2-18, Stretch Energy Code, as set forth in the warrant and shown in underlined text for the purpose of regulating the design and construction of buildings for the effective use of energy. Pursuant to Appendix 115.AA of the Massachusetts Building Code, 780 CMR, the Stretch Energy Code, including future additions, amendments, or modifications thereto, with the effective date of July 1, 2017. This is a majority vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. And those opposed. Article 47 passes. Article 48.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to amend Part 7 of the Northborough Town Code, the Northborough zoning bylaw, Section 7-05-020, classification of uses. 1, industrial uses. 2, research and development, by adding the text shown as underlined and deleting the text shown as strike-through as set forth in the warrant.
Motion has been made and seconded.
This is the last step that has to be taken in order for us to be able to achieve the status as a green community. It's just simply being a little bit more specific in our zoning bylaw, so we encourage the development of facilities that create alternative and renewable energy.
Thank you. May I hear the recommendation from the Planning Board, please?
Mr. Moderator, the Planning Board voted unanimously to support this article.
And may I hear from the Municipal Code and Bylaw Committee, please?
Mr. Moderator, the Municipal Code and Bylaws Committee unanimously recommends approval.
Thank you. Are there any questions on Article 48? Hearing none, this is what you're voting on. I move the town vote to amend Part 7 of the Northborough Town Code, the Northborough zoning bylaw, Section 7-05-020, classification of uses. 1, industrial uses. 2, research and development, by adding the text shown as underlined and deleting the text shown in strike-through as set forth in the warrant. This is a 2/3 vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. And those opposed. I declare that Article 48 has passed by the 2/3 margin. Article 49, Mr. Pember.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to amend Part 7 of the Northborough Town Code, the Northborough zoning bylaw, Section 7-05-030, Table of Uses, Table 1, Table of Uses, Part B, Commercial and Industrial Districts, by deleting the text shown in strike-throughs and adding the text shown as underlined as set forth in the warrant.
Motion has been made and seconded. We have a presentation by Kathy Jewett, our town planner.
Hang on just one sec. Thank
Thank you. Yep, thank you. Okay, Article 49. Similar to a few years ago when the zoning bylaw was amended at town meeting to redirect any new gas stations to the highway business and industrial zoning districts, tonight's article proposes to redirect new auto repair shops to the Business South, highway business and industrial districts, and new auto body shops to the highway business and industrial zoning districts. And I just want to show for a second, if people aren't familiar with the zoning districts. This is Business East along Main Street, Route 20. This is Business West, which is along mostly West Main Street and some of King Street. Business South is Lawrence, mainly Lawrence Street and Otis Street. Highway business is along Route 9. And then our industrial districts are these sort of pinkish purple out here on Bartlett Street along the Marlborough Town line, up here on Barefoot Road, and a little bit over here on Route 20 or the Southwest Cutoff. These proposed changes do not affect any existing auto repair shop or auto body shop that are presently located in Northborough. This particular map shows where the 11 existing auto repair and 1 auto body shop is located in town. The majority of these shops are located either in the Business East and Business West districts, and 1 is located in the industrial district out on Bartlett Street, close to the Marlborough Town line. Today, an auto repair shop is allowed by special permit in the Business East, Business West, Business South, highway business, and industrial districts, and not allowed in the downtown business district, which is right in the center of town. This article proposes to prohibit new repair garages in the Business East and the Business West districts, but continue to allow them in the Business South, highway business, and industrial districts. Regarding auto body shops, they are presently allowed by special permit in the Business West district, the highway business, and the industrial districts, and not allowed in the downtown business, Business East, and Business South districts. This article proposes to prohibit new auto body shops in the Business West district and to continue to allow them in the highway business and the industrial districts. And again, I just want to reemphasize that this does not, and I've talked to several of the garage owners here in town in preparation for this article, and this article does not affect anybody that's currently in business today.
Thank you. May I hear from the Planning Board on Article 49, please?
Mr. Moderator, the Planning Board voted unanimously to support this article.
And may I hear from Municipal Code and Bylaw on Article 49?
Mr. Moderator, the Municipal Code and Bylaws Committee unanimously recommends approval of this article.
Thank you. Any questions? Mr. Amperson.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Question, Kathy. For these businesses that are currently grandfathered, if they go to sell that business, can that business remain in that spot?
Yes, they, every one of those business, if this zoning article was to pass, every one of those businesses would be considered a pre-existing non-conforming. So if any one of them did go to sell and somebody wanted to just come in and, you know, continue the business under a new name, that could happen.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions on Article 49? If not, this is what you're voting on. I move the town vote to amend Part 7 of the Northborough Town Code, the Northborough zoning bylaw, Section 7-05-030, Table of Uses. Table 1, Table of Uses, Part B, Commercial and Industrial Districts, by deleting the text shown in strike-through and adding the text shown as underlined, as set forth in the warrant. This will be a 2/3 vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Those opposed? I declare that Article 49 has passed by the 2/3 margin. Article 50. Mr. Pember.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to amend Part 7 of the Northborough Town Code, the Northborough zoning bylaws, Section 7-05-030, Table of Uses, footnote 9, and Section 7-06-030, Supplemental Regulations, J, Supplemental Density and Dimensional Regulations for certain use classes, by deleting the text shown in strike-through and adding the text shown in underline as set forth in the warrant.
Did I get a second? Yes. Okay. Motion has been made and seconded. Kathy Juber.
As far as Article 50 is concerned, this article pertains to the density requirements for a multifamily development that is currently allowed in the downtown business and the business west zoning districts. Today, a multifamily development consisting of a maximum of 8 units per lot is allowed by special permit in the downtown business and the business west districts. The lot must contain at least 20,000 square feet for the first 2 units and 3,500 square feet for each unit over that, with a maximum of 8 units on the lot. A total of 41,000 square feet today is needed to build 8 units. For a point of reference, an acre is 43,560 square feet. The changes proposed this evening include decreasing the maximum number of units from 8 to 6 and changing the lot area to now require still the initial 20,000 square feet for the first 2 units, but increase the lot area to 7,000 square feet for each unit over the first 2 units, with a maximum of 6 units, as opposed to the 8 units that's presently allowed today. A total of 48,000 square feet would now be required to build 6 units. Many residents have commented to various board members and staff members that the present multifamily developments are too dense, too many units on too small of a lot. These 2 changes propose to decrease the total number of units allowed and to increase the lot size necessary in order to build a multifamily development. The second part of this article, there is no change other than what you see as capital letter J, small letter D, I believe it is in the warrant. All that is separating out business south from business west. C and D used to be one part of the code. We're now just proposing it to be a C and a D. So there's no density changes or number changes to that. That's it.
Thank you. Okay. May I hear from the planning board on Article 50, please?
Mr. Moderator, the planning board voted unanimously to support this article.
Thank you. And may I hear from Municipal Code and Bylaw on Article 50?
Mr. Moderator, the Municipal Code and Bylaws Committee unanimously recommends approval of this article.
Thank you. Are there any questions on Article 50? Yes, sir.
Mark Tessier, 35 Colburn Street, again. A little before this, we heard about the need to develop more affordable housing in Northborough. It looks like this article is actually going to decrease the amount of low-cost or affordable housing. The other thing I heard just now was that people have objected to the amount or the lack of land around these things, but I haven't heard from the renters that they're objecting, and I think their opinion's more relevant than the surrounding neighbors. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, this is what you're voting on for Article 50. I move the town vote to amend Part 7 of the Northborough Town Code, the Northborough zoning bylaw, Section 7-05-030, Table of Uses, footnote 9, and Section 7-06-030, Supplemental Regulations. J, Supplemental Density and Dimensional Regulations for certain use classes, by deleting the text shown in strike-through and adding the text shown as underlined, as set forth in the warrant. And this requires a 2/3 vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. And those opposed? I declare that Article 50 has passed by the 2/3 margin. Article 51, Mr. Pember.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to amend Part 7 of the Northborough Town Code, the Northborough zoning bylaw, Section 7-10-020, common driveways, by deleting the text shown in strike-through and adding the text shown as underlined as set forth in the warrant.
Motion has been made and seconded. We have a presentation by Michelle Gillespie from the Planning Board.
Good evening. Regulations for the common driveways currently exist in two documents, the zoning bylaw and the subdivisions rules and regulations. The article is considered a housekeeping article and that we are proposing the common driveway regulations appear in one document for the sake of having to only update one document in the future and for ease of use by applicants and their engineers. No changes to the requirements are being made. We are simply requesting a reference be made in the zoning bylaw directing people to the subdivision rules and regulations.
Thank you. And may I hear from the Planning Board, please?
Mr. Moderator, surprise, surprise, the Planning Board voted unanimously again to support this article, too.
Well, knock me over with a feather. And may I hear from the Municipal Code and Bylaw Committee, please?
Mr. Moderator, the Municipal Code and Bylaws Committee unanimously recommends approval.
Thank you. Are there any questions on Article 51? Hearing none, this is what you're voting on. I move the town vote to amend Part 7 of the Northborough Town Code, the Northborough zoning bylaw, Section 7-10-020, common driveways, by deleting the text shown in strike-through and adding text shown as underlined, as set forth in the warrant. This is a 2/3 vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. And those opposed? I declare that Article 51 has passed by the 2/3 margin. Article 52, please. Mr. Pember.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to amend Part 7 of the Northborough Town Code, the Northborough zoning bylaw, Section 7-10, special regulations, by adding a new Section 7-10-060, temporary moratorium on recreational marijuana establishments, as set forth in the article, and further to amend the table of contents to add Section 7-10-060, temporary moratorium on recreational marijuana establishments.
Motion has been made and seconded. Presentation by Michelle Gillespie.
Thank you. Article 52. The current timeline. On November 8th, 2016, the recreational use of marijuana was legalized in Massachusetts. On December 5th, 2016, personal use of marijuana is now legal for a person at least 21 years old. On March 15th, 2018, is the deadline for the Cannabis Control Commission to adopt initial regulations. On April 1st, 2018, is the deadline for Cannabis Control Commission to begin accepting specific licenses. On July 1st, 2018, is the deadline for Cannabis Control Commission to adopt the final guidelines, regulations. For our local control, municipalities may adopt ordinances and bylaws regulating the time, place, and manner of operations of marijuana establishments. This planning board is recommending the adoption of a 1-year temporary moratorium for recreational marijuana establishment, which is to be defined as a marijuana cultivator, a marijuana testing facility, a marijuana productive manufacturer, a marijuana retailer, or any other type of licensed marijuana-related businesses. The temporary moratorium will provide the time for the town boards to discuss and review the following: Cannabis Control Commission regulations, which, as previously mentioned, the CCC has not yet been formed, and therefore no regulations for the licensing of these establishments has been adopted by the state. Potential impacts of recreational marijuana as a land use. The time, place, and manner of operations of marijuana establishments. Should this be directed to a particular zoning district? Should this use not be allowed within a certain distance of schools? Should a license from the Board of Selectmen and/or the Board of Health, similar to a liquor license, auto sale license, and food establishments license, be required for a recreational marijuana establishment? In conclusion, these questions need to be discussed by various town boards in conjunction with the CCC regulations, and this is why we are proposing a one-year temporary moratorium to be in effect until June 30th, 2018. Thank you.
May I hear from the Planning Board on Article 52, please?
Mr. Moderator, the Planning Board voted unanimously to support this article.
Thank you. And the Municipal Code and Bylaw Committee?
Mr. Moderator, the Municipal Code and Bylaws Committee unanimously recommends approval of this article.
Thank you. Are there any questions on Article 52? Yes.
Yes. Do I need to announce my name again? Do I need to announce my name again?
Yes.
Mark Tessier, 35 Colburn Street. Several years ago, a number of marijuana control and licensing issues came up before this board or at a town meeting, and they were all resoundingly defeated. So I'm baffled as to why this is appearing again. And I would recommend a no vote on it to go and to match the previous votes.
Yeah. Kathy Jubert can answer your question. I think that was about medical, wasn't it?
A couple of years ago, the planning board proposed a temporary moratorium on medical marijuana, which was approved by town meeting. And the following year, the planning board came back with a bylaw about medical marijuana. And that's what was not approved at town meeting. This is a completely, separate category. This was the ballot question from this past fall, and this is about recreational marijuana.
Okay, but at the previous meeting, even on the medical marijuana, the discussions were that we don't need any regulations. We're happy to live with the town regulations. And like I said, that was an overwhelming majority voted in favor of that. So why would you go against that majority for this?
Well, it's a completely separate subject.
It's marijuana.
Well, we believe it's a completely separate subject. 3 years ago, it was about medical marijuana, and the recent vote in the state was about recreational marijuana.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or statements for Article 52? Hearing none.
Amy Paretsky, 47 Indian Meadow Drive. And I just wanted to state in one way that it is different. With medical marijuana, people coming for the licenses had to get approval from the Board of Selectmen. With recreational marijuana, those same rules aren't applying. And this is just a one-year moratorium, and it was advised by our town legal counsel, and I guess that's all I have to say.
Any other questions or statements? Hearing none, this is what we're voting on for Article 52. I move the town vote to amend Part 7 of the Northborough Town Code, the Northborough zoning bylaw, Section 7-10, Special Regulations, by adding a new Section 7-10-060, Temporary Moratorium on Recreational Marijuana Establishments, as set forth in the warrant, and further to amend the table of contents to add Section 7-10-060, Temporary Moratorium on Recreational Marijuana Establishments. This is a 2/3 vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. And those opposed? I declare that Article 52 is passed by the 2/3 margin. Article 53.
Mr. Moderator, I move the town vote to pass over this article.
Motion to pass over has been made and seconded.
This was an article that had to do with duplex housing, and quite frankly, the planning board was perplexed as to how to deal with this, and we couldn't seem to come to any kind of conclusion on it. The town has voted money to have a master plan prepared, and one of the items in the master plan is going to be housing and affordable housing. It will be part of that. And so we decided that it would be best if we could get the input of the master planning committee on this topic before we came back to the town and sought specific changes in the zoning bylaws. So we're asking you to pass this over tonight.
Thank you. What we have in front of us is a motion to pass over Article 53. And there seems to be some discussion right here. So, yes, ma'am.
Fran Backstrand, 76 Cedar Hill Road. I just want to actually use the same rationale that we just had for the moratorium on the marijuana clinics, in that we just said that we're going to give the state a year to come up with the regulations that we can abide by that will be for a potential revenue generating business. Shouldn't we give the same time to our own town boards and committees and citizens to come up with the zoning bylaws that will address this, which really does have an impact on the character of our community? You were perplexed, but it is something that is important, and it's not about affordable housing. Right now, the duplexes that are going up are not affordable. They're way over the average median house, single-family houses right now. So it's not about affordable. It's about whether or not we want to take a break and look at whether the current zoning bylaws are addressing what it is that we intended them to be, which was affordable alternative first-time homeowner housing, which it is not currently. The master plan is the tool to get there, but that's also a 2-year process, which would have us having 2 more years of these mega mansion duplexes coming into the town and taking up little pieces of property that were originally small ranches. So I would ask that we don't pass over it, that we have a discussion and a debate, and then if this body decides we don't need the moratorium, fine, but we should at least have that conversation before we make a decision. Thank you.
Any further comments or discussion? Yes.
Hi, my name is Brett Bullion, 215 South Street. I totally agree what she said. This influx of these mass houses, and they're not affordable living. They are $500,000 duplexes, which means $1 million building on a small lot. They put undue stress on our infrastructure, on our water systems, on our school systems, and we have to take a close look at it and figure out how far we could go, because right now we're putting a lot of pressure on our town and what we could afford, and as taxpayers, we pay for all of that. So I think we should definitely take a vote on this and at least see if we could wait a year and then come up with a plan that looks at and addresses all these issues that we're having. Thank you.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Chris Graham, number 10 Jethro Peters Lane. I would just like to concur with the previous 2 speakers. My property abuts one of these developments that was recently put in. These individual units sold for well over $400,000, well north of what I paid for my single-family home. And I want to, again, just agree with these folks. I think we're moving too quickly here. We're stressing our infrastructure. There have been numerous issues with abutters and candidly bad behavior by the developers who are putting in these units. So I would ask that we reconsider this motion. Thank you.
Seeing there are no other questions, what we have in front of us is a motion to pass over Article 53. This is a majority vote. All those in favor, please raise your cards. And those opposed? Motion to pass over fails.
I'm not here to speak on behalf of the article. The planning board voted unanimously to oppose it.
Yes,
Mr.
ma'am.
Moderator, Fran Backstrand again, 76 Cedar Hill Road. I actually attended the meeting of the planning board, the meeting before they voted unanimously, when they had a very good discussion about the merits of this warrant article. And at that moment, they were, at least in consensus, that it was a good idea. What happened or transpired over the next month, that they eventually voted to pass over it. Some of it may have been from feedback that they received from residents, but the residents that matter are the ones that show up here tonight to talk about this and debate the merits of it. And I have to say, as a member of your Zoning Board of Appeals, I sit way too many times at meetings with residents that come into those meetings and say, why are you letting this happen? How can you do this? Why make it stop? I can't make it stop unless you pass zoning bylaws that say I can make it stop. It's not what I want, it's what the zoning bylaws say we allow. And if you want to have a chance to address those zoning bylaws without additional building under the current zoning bylaws, you pass the moratorium, you work hard, you volunteer on the master plan and the community development plans that are 17 years old and no longer reflect what we want to see. Or we have allowed what is currently happening to destroy what we want as the vision for our community. But this moratorium is going to just give us a chance to do some hard work. Thank you.
Mr. Pember, did you wish to say something?
Not yet. We'll let the
Okay.
another person.
Over here.
Janice Fournier from 283 Davis Street. I don't particularly like the idea of having multiple duplexes or put up on a property, but I do have an issue with, let's say there's a person in town who's having money difficulties, to put a moratorium on them and to not allow them to go forward and try to make money off of their property, where the town can still discuss any kind of zoning issues that they want to, or anything, no one's stopping the town from discussing these matters, but putting a moratorium on a person prevents a property owner from doing something if there's an emergency.
Is this something new?
No, I would just, since there's nobody representing the article, I'll do it again.
I'll speak.
Okay. And I do
Go ahead.
believe I have to make a motion for us to actually vote on it, so.
So, to the point that was just made, that's one of the reasons why the planning board was kind of perplexed as to what to do. There are people out there who do intend to sell their house, and frankly, if you pass the moratorium, you're preventing them from doing that if the only person that really wants to buy their house is someone who is interested in putting up a duplex. As far as the opposition we've heard, sorry, hate to be cynical, but all three people, or excuse me, the second and third people who spoke this were not in my backyard people, and not necessarily reflecting the views of all of us. And there are a lot of good people in this town who are doing quality building, putting up some really nice properties. And to say that everybody is wrong, everybody's doing the wrong thing, every single duplex in town is a disgrace, that's not true. It's just not true. One of the reasons that the planning board put this off is because we do feel that perhaps some changes in the bylaws are necessary. What we couldn't come to agreement on is the magnitude of the modifications. The article that was originally proposed was something that was not unanimously supported by the planning board. And the reason that we've decided to ask for, to pass over this is because the feedback that we got on that article got some very negative feedback from the people sitting up here, your selectmen, who represent all of you. And they were not overly enthusiastic about this particular article and suggested that maybe they weren't going to be voting for it either. So that's why we're thinking that this needs a lot more study. And in the meantime, there are people who are out there who are looking forward to sell their house We don't want to take away their right to sell.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Brett Bullion. When I originally bought my house here, I bought it in an area that was zoned single-family residential. And when I stayed there, that's what I expected to live in a single-family residential area. And since I've been there, multiple duplexes have gone on all around our house. So it isn't, yes, it is in my backyard. And my problem is, when I bought, that's the way it was zoned, and for some reason, they passed it and said, no, now we're gonna change the zoning laws, sorry for you. So it's yes.
Not true.
Okay, tell me
Duplexes
what
are
happened.
allowed in that zone, have always been allowed in that zone.
Then why did they have to go to a zoning appeal to have it changed? To have them allow a duplex in there?
They need a special permit. They don't need a variance. They need a special permit.
Mhm.
And that's so that the zoning board of appeals can make some decisions as to whether or not this is appropriate.
Well, I was under the impression that it was single-family residential zoned.
Incorrect assumption.
Yes, ma'am.
My backyard, I guess I wanted to just put my support behind some of the voices that we've heard too. I just think that a moratorium on building these duplexes would be our best idea at this stage, because if the alternative is to say, well, let's continue on and we'll let the master plan take a look at it, all that time does march by, and in the meantime, other properties may sell, as you mentioned, but other duplexes may be built in that time, which totally changes the look and feel and the character of the town, I think. And so far, I think people on different boards and committees are hearing the feedback of not loving the idea of so many duplexes for some reasons, maybe if they're not loving the builder or whatever, but I think it just changes the character and the look of the town, and it does put stress on the school systems where there now are, there are two families perhaps in a plot of land that used to support only one family. But there are so many questions out there that I guess I view this as, why not have a moratorium? And we're only talking about 1 year, so you give the boards time to review and assess whether that makes sense, rather than hope on a wish and a prayer that the master plan, whenever it's done, might have a better option. So I guess I too am in favor of putting a moratorium on that kind of building right now. I think it seems to be changing the way the town sort of looks, as we're becoming a little more urbanized, which is not, I think, what a lot of us, have grown used to or had expected from our town. Thank you.
Mr. Moderator, I would like to actually redo the motion because the Passover. So at this moment, I would like to move that we vote to amend the town zoning bylaws by adding a new section 710-070, a temporary moratorium on the two-family dwellings that would provide as follows, and further to amend the table of contents to add section 710-070, the temporary moratorium on two-family dwellings as written in the warrant article.
There's been a motion to amend the motion to pass over.
This is the original. This is the original motion.
Which is the original motion that was in the warrant. And we have a second. Is there any presentation that goes with that, or have we already discussed that enough? Okay. Mr. Stone, are you waiting to speak?
Yes. I just wanted to say that, I am a realtor in town, and the lady that spoke before mentioned a person that had a need to sell financially and in an emergency situation, and I did represent a seller that was in that position that needed money badly to maximize their value. And as far as affordable housing goes, I think that right now the market is increased quite a bit. So you've got an alternative for new construction, single family, for example, off of East Main Street, those are selling in the mid-7s, I believe. So compared with that, your choice of another new home, it is more affordable. I think ultimately these zones that are affected are residential C and general residential, which is not the majority of the town. It's certain areas, mostly around the center of town and the southern sections. And ultimately probably looking at maybe increasing the setbacks, but still right now you could build a single family home with a large addition up to 15 feet from the sideline. And for instance, Shrewsbury is 10 feet and we're mostly 15. So I'd have to agree with the planning board at this point. I just don't think that that's necessary, but thank you.
Where's that?
Hi. Michelle?
Just one moment.
Oh.
We have someone right here that was in line.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that, number one, I don't believe this board ever voted on this article. I know Mr. Pember thought that there was some angst on the board concerning this, but from my recollection, I will admit I wasn't at the last meeting. I don't ever remember discussing this or having any in-depth dissertation on this. So I just wanted to be clear, with the folks that are out there, at least for me personally, I've never, taken a public opinion on this.
Mr. Moderator, I was at the meeting when Kathy Juba did the presentation, and I was concerned with affordability in the town of Northborough, and I have to concur with the planning board. I think it's a knee-jerk reaction putting a moratorium on it, because if anybody's in a financial crush with their property, they should be allowed to be able to build a duplex. Not all duplexes that have been built, maybe in the recent history of Northborough, there have been some big ones built at probably 400,000 plus, but it's putting a financial burden on some residents in Northborough. And I think if the planning board wants to pass over this article, there's a reason for it. They couldn't come to an agreement. And I think we should, pass over it and not vote on it.
Thank you. Michelle Gillespie, 117 Howard Street, and a member of the Northborough Planning Board. Just to give you a little history, we have been discussing this for several months. And I really want to thank the staff, Kathy Joubert and our building inspector and our town engineer, who went to great lengths to reach out to neighboring communities, because that's what we do. We reach out to the neighboring communities. We ask Westboro, Shrewsbury, Marlborough, all the neighboring communities, what are you doing in this situation and what do your setbacks look like? And they came up with a great plan. Unfortunately, we had 3 members of the planning board who were in favor of their proposal, one who didn't want to see any changes, and then one who wanted to see more restrictive changes. And we started to sort of run out of time. We knew that the town of Shrewsbury had already done changes to their bylaws with regards to this. And we, as planning board members, had heard throughout the year about the change of the character of the community. These units, I sell real estate as well. They are going for $500,000. They are not affordable. And we were hearing this. And so we wanted to sort of take a step back, take a look at it during our master plan, which seemed like the right thing to do. Just as we just voted on for the marijuana that we just voted on, to take a step back, look at it, and address the concerns of the residents. We could not come to a consensus of a full majority vote on the board on what the setback should be, so we decided on the moratorium. In the end, I'll be honest, the reason that we sort of pulled it was because we heard we didn't have the support of the other boards. And so Fran wasn't at that meeting, but we had a healthy discussion a week ahead of time, and then we heard other boards didn't support us, and that's why we came to listen to the community on what they wanted to do with regards to duplexes. And so I just wanted to give you a little history about what we were discussing over the past few months. Thank you.
Over here, please.
Yeah, Amy Peretsky, 47 Indian Meadow Drive, and I'm also on the planning board, and what Michelle just said is true. We were in support of the moratorium until we heard that the other boards weren't in support, of the moratorium, and we didn't want to go forward to town meeting without the support of the other boards, so we decided to pass over it. But I just want to state that I actually am in support of the moratorium, and I did a lot of research too. And going down South Street, there have been many duplexes built, and the last 2 duplexes built this year were sold. They're on the market for $500,000 each, and everybody said that's affordable. Those are only 10 houses on that street that were more expensive than those houses. So those houses that were just built as duplexes being sold as more affordable were actually more expensive than the other 110 houses on the street. So I was for the moratorium because we feel that the duplexes now are being built the size of 2 houses. The last few that came in front of the board were 2,500 to 3,000 square feet on each side. And we felt with the year's moratorium, we could come up with the proper setbacks to write a better bylaw.
Over here, please.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. My name is Mitch Cohen. I'm a new resident of Northborough at 12 Whitney Street. The parcels of land next to the house that we bought, we were told, went back and forth between single family and duplex, and honestly, we were somewhat encouraged at the idea of a duplex. That we like the idea of diversity in the neighborhood. And then we learned that these duplexes would be quite large, and in fact were proposed and went before the zoning board at about 4,600 square feet each building on 20,000 square feet of land. Just pushing the borders right up to the front and side limits. Thankfully for us, the parcel immediately next to us was a little bit less than 20,000 square feet, so it's going to be a single family house. So I put that in perspective, that I paid a lot of attention to this over the last few months. I attended planning board meetings, zoning board meetings, to learn about this and voice my opinion. In the meetings that I went to, it certainly seemed that there was a lot of agreement, as I think we've heard from a couple of planning board members, that the current regulations, the current zoning doesn't match up with what is being built and what is best for the town of Northborough. What is being built, I mean, is done. I mean, it's being built, and nothing that we vote on tonight will change that, and I'm okay with that. But I encourage everyone to think about this, the moratorium, as a really good thing. There's clearly a problem that the town is trying to address. A moratorium is exactly the kind of fix, temporary fix, that is appropriate to allow the town to go ahead and figure out these hard issues. Back a few months ago, it looked like this was going to be a done deal, and they were just going to figure out what the setbacks would be and the minimum lot size would be, and that would be the end of it. It sounds like it got more complicated than that. So I voice strong support for the moratorium, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor that has been seconded, and that motion is to really vote on Article 53 as it was originally presented before there was a motion to pass over. For those of you that have been lost in the confusion, let me read what the original Article 53 was, and it's in your warrant anyway. And that is to see if the town will vote to amend the town's zoning bylaws by adding a new section, Section 7-10-070, temporary moratorium on two-family dwellings, that would provide as follows, and further to amend the table of contents to add Section 7-10-070, temporary moratorium on two-family dwellings, or take any action relative thereto. And I believe that there should be an additional statement in this that says, as set forth in the warrant, so that it's clear what we're talking about as far as the language. Does the individual that made this motion support that statement?
I do.
I now pronounce you, no, that's another statement. So, coming back to this matter, this is a 2/3 vote. All those in favor of the amended Article 53, please raise your cards. And those opposed? I'm going to bring the tellers out. Ready? All those in favor, please raise your hand, your cards. Okay, are all the in favors counted? All right, those opposed, please raise your cards.
Okay, and a second 3.
I declare that the amendment of Article 53 has passed by the 2/3 margin. So is everyone clear at what that means? Or do we have confusion here? Tell me.
Clear.
It's clear?
Yes.
Okay. I will ask now that we suspend the rules. Typically, we adjourn at 11. We have two articles, but one more point of business that we need to work on. If we could suspend the rules and complete those, we can get out of here and have completed the meeting.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor? Let's carry on, okay? Article 54. Mr. Bennett.
Moderator, I move the town to amend Part 7 of the Northborough Town Code, the Northborough zoning bylaws, Section 7-03-050, site plans. A, applicability, by adding the text shown as underlined as set forth in the warrant.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Presentation by Kathy Jubert.
Mr. Moderator.
Yes.
I am informed by our town planner that because the previous amendment, or the previous motion was approved, then we need to pass over this one because they've already taken the action on this. So I wish to amend now. You may need something in writing from me.
Okay, then you,
Asking you to
let me hear your
pass over
amended
this.
motion.
Mr. Moderator, I move to pass over Article 54.
Motion has been made and seconded, and we are passing over definitively because of the action that took place in the prior article?
Yes, Article 54 pertains to duplexes.
Okay.
Which are now on hold for a year.
Okay. So there is on the table a motion to pass over on Article 54. Any questions?
Article 54 pertains to adding duplexes to the site plan review process, but since the previous article was just approved to adopt a one-year moratorium, we don't need to make any changes to any of the duplex regulations because we now have a one-year moratorium in place.
And I assume that there's support from the planning board on this.
Yes, I'm presuming that, although we didn't take a vote on this specifically.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on Article 54? Hearing none, the motion was made to pass over on Article 54. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Those opposed? Motion to pass over has passed. Article 55.
Mr. Moderator, I move that we pass over Article 55.
Second.
Motion's been made to pass over Article 55 and seconded. Mr. Kader, please enlighten us.
Sure. This article provided for payment of the debt service to the White Cliffs. We have not issued the debt. There is no debt service. Therefore, it's appropriate to pass over the article.
Any questions? Hearing no questions, the motion is to pass over on Article 55. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Those in opposition? Motion to pass over passes. Now, folks, before we leave, there's probably a 2-hour presentation that we have on reports and activities in the town. The snacks will be... There has been a motion to adjourn. Actually, I will educate everyone. It's a motion to dissolve. That motion to dissolve, has it been seconded? Motion made, seconded. All those in favor, please raise your cards. Thank you so much, folks. Thank you.